All right. Welcome, everybody, to MogTalk episode 179. Today is August 31st, 2019. And we are here with MogTalk, a show based around the Final Fantasy XIV community, discussing everything from Savage Raiding to Chocobo Racing. And before we get into it, of course, I want you guys to know who we have on the show. So I'm actually going to do this. I can't remember the order I said I was going to do this in, but I'm going to do it this way. Ethys, could you introduce yourself first here?
Hi, it's me. I'm Ethys. I'm the law guy that sometimes has opinions about other things that
Sometimes is on another show. Yeah.
This isn't a law show, if you believe that. Wow.
Well, I mean, there might be a little bit of lore here. We'll see.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
And just to kind of work in his favor a little bit more, Ethys is a very one like the icon of Final Fantasy XIV. I think in Australia, absolutely genius when it comes to lore. Very entertaining, laid back guy. I love having come on the show. So there you go. Because he forgot to work himself up a little bit more than what he did there. Bok, could you go next? Could you introduce yourself here?
Yeah. Hi. Hi. Hey there. Hello. Yeah, I'm Bok Choy. Been on the show a few times. Usually Savage Raiding, stuff like that type of topic. But Frosty needed somebody toxic to be on his Toxicity show, so
Absolutely.
no better choice than the most toxic person on so.
Which is absolutely unfair statement there. I would say Bok is a very good player. He's one of the ones that I enjoy listening to quite a bit. Although I know you have your I don't know, rivals in thought on some of the discussions that you have, and they're like, no, I don't agree. But that's okay. You talk at a pretty high level. You're a very good player.
I'm doing it right?
Yeah, exactly. And I always enjoy having you on. So I hope you guys look forward to him, because he recently got a camera too, so he's unfrozen, and this is actually pretty interesting. This is the third time I think I've had you on with a camera, and I enjoy it a lot more than before.
I literally did it for you. I'm not joking.
Such a sweetheart, dude. Such a sweetheart. And the rounded up here, the very last person here, last and least, of course. Just kidding. Kai, could you please introduce yourself here?
I'm Kai, or Kaiyoko Star on Twitter, and I'm the fashion reporter person. But I'm probably the most casually toxic person. I dabble in casual stuff and hardcore rating, so just casual hardcore gamer dad. Whatever you want to say.
Dad, his son is named after a boss in
He's not.
Anyways, Kai is an awesome guy. I love having him come on the show too. Plays at a fairly high level. The topic today is going to be a very sensitive topic in some people's minds. To me, it's something that I care about, but I'm not sensitive to it. I guess we're going to be talking about stuff that might look like we're all just elitist assholes, and I hope that's not how we come off, because that's not what I want the show to be about. I want to highlight a certain type of mindset that seems to be kind of plaguing the environment in a way that makes it not fun for other people who are trying to enjoy the game. It gets kind of ignored quite a bit, but I don't want to get too much into it, because part of this conversation is defining what the hell casual toxicity is. And so to start us off, I actually want to just ask you guys the straightforward question. Do you think at the end of this show, are we all going to be just elitist assholes? Is it just going to be us shitting on casual players? Is that what the show's going to be?
Am I going to be shitting on myself by the end of the show? I don't know. You'll have to watch to find out.
Okay. Would you? I guess this is a good question. Bok, would you consider yourself what label, if you're going to label yourself casual or hardcore or elitist, if you seriously had a label for yourself, which would it be? Oh, you're muted.
Oh shit! I'm sorry.
It's okay. That's okay.
Okay. Anyway, label. Okay. Well, if you're asking me, okay, the opposite of casual, people say elitist, and I'm just like, is that the opposite of casual? But I don't know. To me, I would say that I'm competitive.
Okay.
Right? And to me, that's the opposite. That is a better word, a better antonym for casual is competitive, right? And these are all murky terms, right? But if you were to ask me what I am, I wouldn't say I'm hardcore. I've never done world prog. I've never rated like, more than 5 hours a day. So like, I'd say I would say I'm competitive. So and 80% of the game for me is end game rating because it is a competitive environment. That's essentially what it is, right? So that's how I'd label myself, competitive.
All right. Ethys, how would you label yourself?
I'd rather not, to be honest.
Okay, no label. You're Ethys.
I'm a professional gamer. All right. Like,
okay. All right. In the spectrum, though, you'd say there's no spectrum where Ethys is like firmly, like at least remotely
honestly,
planted.
like it varies like week by week. Like there are some weeks where I'm like, all right, I'm like, really, and I'm gonna try really hard, and I'm gonna like, super push for like early clears and stuff like that. And then there will be other patches where I'm just like, fuck it, whatever. Just gonna like, have fun. So I don't know. I think it's a much more fluid thing than a lot of people realize as well. At least for most people, I think it's pretty fluid. It really depends on where you're at during that patch, during that week, even. Okay. It's not like you can't really identify people on this spectrum between like casual and hardcore and be like, all right, I'm
just where you are currently. I guess it's like that day I'm more serious than I was yesterday.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Would you kind of say the same thing, Kai? Or are you just like, sometimes I'm like, I don't care about the game. Sometimes I'm like, I'm going to be the best player in the world.
I'd say I define myself as just being a very invested individual in the game. I don't consider myself like hardcore or like casual because like I dabble literally in almost everything in the game, and I just put a lot of time into it. If that's what makes it hardcore or elitist, like I guess that's the case. I try to do my best when I'm doing those things, and that's it.
The memes are already starting in chat about what you said at this. You just
I was thinking, I'm like, am I still talking about how I play video games? Am I stumbling across something profound here about myself?
Oh, jeez. All right.
But you know what? This actually brings up a good point already. Is that these one-word labels for like a type of gamer, and it's just like who can be described in one word like that? Casual, hardcore, competitive, whatever. Like who can really be described that way? And I feel like sometimes when you categorize people so like narrowly like that, it also like makes people want to like funnel stereotypes into that label, right? So,
yeah, you're putting people in a box.
Yeah, you're putting people in a box, and then you're you have a bunch of characteristics of the people that belong in that box, right? And that causes problems as well, like misconceptions and such.
That's fair. I mean, and I'm sure having a show where we labeled it casual toxicity isn't going to cause any kind of issues with labels or misconceptions of people and what they do, right?
Not at all.
No. Well, I feel like exploring the topic's actually going to be pretty interesting today because I myself, just to give you guys some perspective, and I'm going to try to. I have a lot of opinions on this, and I'm going to try to be a little bit reserved because I feel like I don't want. I brought my guest on the show to talk about it. I didn't bring my guest on the show to listen to me talk. But there's some stuff I might say a little bit later. I'm very invested in this game. I spent a lot of time in this game doing things, getting MogTalk going and talking to people in the community, starting discussions on Twitter or discussions here, of course, on the show. And doing stuff like working with the PvP community, doing world rating stuff. But in the game, I party finder my progression through Savage. I do a very casual-ish kind of progression. I log in, I'm like, I have time right now. I'm able to get into a group and I'll try to progress a little bit. It's not, I definitely can't label myself as hardcore. I would just label myself as someone who spends maybe 5 to 10 hours actually in the game playing every week, which might be seen as casual to some people. But there you go. That's my whole perspective and stance. I'm very hardcore within my investment in the game, but playtime in the game is, if I had to throw labels on it, it would be more casual. All right. So I guess one of the reasons why it's kind of difficult to have these conversations is because I feel like every time that we get into any kind of suggestion and we say, hey, this is something that is not good, this is bad behavior, this is bad attitude, this is bad whatever, and it's going towards the way of a more casual mindset of, hey, I just play for fun, I don't care. It's always gets belittled to that person making the comments is an elitist asshole. And that's why it's so difficult to have these conversations. At least that's how I feel. Do you guys agree with that at all? Or do you feel like not really? Look, I saw that laugh at this. I saw a little bit of laugh.
I just think like these discussions often come down to like this perception of like hardcore and casual standing across the room, just like shouting at each other. You're toxic. No, you're toxic. No, you're fucking toxic. No, you're toxic.
Yeah.
And it's this isn't that, obviously. It's
hopefully
not
no.
Like that.
Yeah. Kai, do you feel like you have trouble actually sharing your opinions on what you would consider casual toxicity might be, or that kind of behavior?
Like, are you talking about in game, or do you mean like on Twitter? Because like
anywhere.
on Twitter,
the above.
On Twitter, I'm gonna let loose, like, and I'm gonna be tell it to you straight, because like that's just how I am on Twitter. Okay. But in game, I feel like I'm completely restricted because someone will screenshot what I'm saying and then label me some certain way, or then report me to Square Enix or something like that. And like I have to be super more careful in game, especially in a party finder or duty finder situation, just because like I fear that like the ban hammer will just come down because I'm like trying to persuade someone to play a certain way, and I know that's literally now in the rules. So,
and how would it look if Noriko had her husband banned from the game? I guess, right?
Exactly. See,
so I can understand that.
Yeah.
Bok, any opinions on that? Like with the whole perception of even having a discussion?
Yeah. Well, absolutely. I mean, the way I see it, okay, like I've been gaming my whole life. And I have like, online, offline, everything. And I've never seen a game where that has like, this is a game, Final Fantasy 14 is a game that has something for everybody. If you like to craft, if you like to PvP, if you like to, housing, hardcore raiding, whatever you like to do, right? I've never seen a game, not even World of Warcraft, is this vast and reaches kind of like so many different types of players and kind of, tickles, so many different people's fancies, right? And
keep going.
Yeah. So then with that kind of comes like the attitude of like people think that if you don't enjoy the game the same way that I do, then it's not so much hostility, but it's kind of like they feel like that people who are different threaten my enjoyment, right? So that comes down to things like game design. It's like, oh man, SC's catering to the casuals again. This game sucks because of the casuals. And then the casuals like, why don't they ever think of us as casuals when they keep making content for the hardcores? Why are they making stuff like Ultimate that I'll never get to experience?
Why do they put haircuts behind PvP?
Yeah, and you see it on Reddit too, because like if you guys have ever been on the Final Fantasy 14 subreddit, everything gets fucking downvoted to oblivion. And the reason is if I like this part of the game, this little tiny section of the game, and nothing else, that's all I want to see. So when I see something from a different section, I'm going to downvote it because I don't want to see that dominating the subreddit. And then everybody's just downvoting each other. And I know it's just Reddit. That's just how Reddit works. But it kind of like gives us a glimpse of how people feel about each other and other people who play the same game, but in a different way. Because in this game, no two people enjoy this game the exact same way, right?
Right.
Like you might have like a little bit of this, a little bit of that, but no two people enjoy it the same way. So, and I find that people who have different mindsets are often intolerant of each other, and that's kind of the sources of what we're calling here is casual toxicity.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes both ways too, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Bok, are you invested in any part of the game like other than rating?
Yeah, I would say so. Rating is like 80% of the game for me, right? Like rating is 80% of the game for me. I just really like that aspect of it, and it's like really concentrated to like so like the little portion that I really like a lot. But I'd say like
what about the other majority 20%?
The other 20%,
RPing. Yeah, he does that.
What I'm trying to say,
I like dungeons. I like stuff like I like doing dungeons. I like doing I like glamour. I like stuff like that, right? Not that much into the story. A lot of this stuff that I know story wise, I've learned from you, Ethys. I don't know if you know that, but yeah, just I don't know. It's I like the music. I like the art. I like the stuff like that. Okay. But like if you ask me what Final Fantasy 14 means to me, I already start thinking about rating.
Okay. Because I think on one hand you're right that like everyone wants different things from the game, and when we see priority in the allocation of resources from the devs going to other things, we're like, this is everything that's wrong with the communities. People don't like that thing. But at the same time, I don't know how many people really fall into the category of only being into one thing in the game. Like this game is extremely broad. And as a result, it kind of like reaches a bunch of different people and kind of brings them all together in one space. But at the same time, I feel like most of us are not just invested in one thing. And for most of us, one of the things that is so great about this game is that it does, as you say, tickle so many different fancies. Like I get my sort of like, crafting kicks. I get my raiding kicks. Your kind of social aspects. Like there's so many different aspects of the game. And when I see like something other than raiding getting an update, I'm like, okay, cool. And when I see raiding getting an update, I'm like, all right, cool. I see PvP getting an update, I'm like, well, I mean, they're updating like 9 out of 10 things that I like, so that's fine. I'm not going to complain about that. Whatever. There's a couple of people that do that.
I mean, just fuck you, but go. Yeah, keep going.
I feel like that was a shot at Frosty.
But you know what I mean, right? It's like if like I enjoy most of the things that are getting updated in the game, when they're updating something that I don't really care about, I'm not like, fuck those people that are invested in that. It's like, all right, well, they get something, I get something. It's cool, right? Is it really that common that people get so annoyed when?
Absolutely.
It's very common. Oh,
and I'm saying this from personally my side, being a PvP player. I get so many people who hate things that I enjoy in the game. It gets kind of that's just a different situation completely than most things, because PvP gets a lot of hate.
Like
but
90% of it's memeing though against PvP. I feel like
so that's true, but there's I don't want to say 90. I would say 50%. Then 50% is actually upset. Why invest? Why do this? Why does this exist? Kind of stuff. But go ahead, Kai. Sorry.
I think when it comes to PvP, I think, at least from my mind, and I'm not trying to shit on PvP. It's just like I think a lot of people get upset because it's like how many people are actually invested into it and why are they spending resources on it? It's like it goes back to the mentality of like people get tribalized into these groups of like different things, and then of pieces of content, and when their piece of content doesn't get all the love that they want it to, or they think it needs more investment into it, they're like, the second any little other piece gets an investment that they don't like, they start hating on those people that enjoy that content.
Exactly. It's like, this is your their resources are being wasted on this thing I don't like, and the people that do like it, this is your fault.
Well, that's not wrong. Like that's not false. Honestly,
it's not false. It's not false. But the thing is, like that's the beauty of this game, is that it has so much for everybody. Like, why don't you just embrace that, right? It's just like that. Why don't you just embrace that? I don't PvP myself. I don't like PvP, but I'm glad it exists because I have a lot of friends who play this game. And a big reason they're still playing this game is PvP. And if not for PvP, they might not be online as much, and I might not get to interact with them as much, right? stuff like that. I mean, there's really no part about this game that I'm just like, why does this exist? And like, you know, this is such a waste of dev resources, except for like Blue Mage.
Well,
Okay.
if no one played PvP, then they wouldn't keep updating it. So this attitude, which I think we can, you know, agree is like a pretty toxic attitude of like, why do they even bother making PvP content? Saying that it's the fault of people who play the PvP content, I mean, that's true in the strictest sense. Like, you're being a douchebag, but it's true. If you could somehow convince the people that like PvP that PvP sucks and that they shouldn't play it, then like they stop doing PvP updates and mission accomplished. And I think that must be like the objective, like pre-consciously in their head when they start going down that path.
Well, here's the thing. I will say this just as a quick caveat to all this. There are lots of people in the PvP community who don't like the state of PvP and they're upset with it, but they want it to be good, right? And so they're pushing for it. So even if it's bad, they still fight for stuff that they want to be good and they want in the game. And so you would have to do a lot to convince a lot of people to not want PvP in the game. But this is like completely off basis. I mean, there's a couple other things with PvP that we could bring into the mix because there is a lot of this casual toxicity mindset that actually is involved with PvP. But that's something we could talk about later. I'm going to try to steer the train back onto the tracks a little bit and get away from it, though, for right now.
Yeah, like long story short, like, yeah, people enjoy this game different ways, and they like to kind of like they have a hostile attitude towards people who like it a different way.
Yeah.
So I guess that's what we're trying to get at, right?
And so that would kind of be one of the reasons with the questions and topics that I had is why is there so much hate for casual people who label themselves as casual versus people who label themselves as competitive or hardcore or something like that? It's because they see this other side as a negative effect on them playing this game. Right? They say the content that I don't care about is coming out. This person has a bad attitude that I got to deal with, and everything else. Because I mean, that's really what it comes down to. And most of the conversations that I've talked to people with, and I guess before we get into that, I want to get into that point really, really, really badly right now. But there's a lot of definitions we got to make. First, what is casual? Can you guys tell me what casual is? If we were going to say a label and we're going to say this is casual, what is casual?
That's difficult. Like the $1 million question, isn't it? That's absolutely, because like people have completely different ideas about what it is to be casual. You can be someone that plays the game for like 50 hours a week, and if you're not raiding, then some raiders will call you casual.
Exactly.
Whereas on paper that might seem ridiculous. On the other side, you can only play the game for like the first couple of weeks of a new tier and play like, 12 hours a day and until you get through prog, and then basically like not touch the game again until next raid patch and call yourself hardcore. And to people that consistently play the game for, 30 hours plus a week, that seems ridiculous. So it's this really difficult to grasp term, and
you hear Speed Racer in the background too, right?
Oh, that's me. I'm sorry.
Okay. No, it's good. It's good. I just want to make sure. Go ahead, Ethys.
But it's just like a really personal thing, isn't it? I think Bok made a good point earlier that maybe like casual and hardcore are not the opposites of each other. Maybe casual is not an antonym of hardcore. Maybe it's an antonym of competitive or invested. Maybe a casual player, regardless of how many hours they play, regardless of what kind of content they play, it's more of an attitude. It's more of a like, I don't really give a shit. Like,
how you approach the game.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So like the casual mindset might be like, not really caring that much about like improving or being invested in like your own sort of personal growth, or in like how you cooperate with other people necessarily. You're just there to like do your own thing and like blow off some steam after work or after school or whatever. And like, you know, you might spend 1 hour doing that, you might spend 100 hours doing it, but it's about the approach that the direction you approach from, the attitude that you bring along with you.
Okay, so I mean, Kai, Bok, you guys kind of agree with all that, or is there any other input you would like to put on towards the definition?
I mean, that's fairly accurate to me, because like it's pretty much like your attitudes towards how you handle the game. Like I don't see it as any other way. Like, are you? I define it slightly differently in the casual. Is like I consider someone a little bit more casual if they're just not caring about the game, but also because they don't understand the consequences of like that attitude has on other people, especially when you come into something like Duty Finder.
I feel like that's not casual. That's just shitty attitude. That's just shitty attitude.
But that's not shitty attitude necessarily, because like you could just not say anything and be playing like that. Like it's just because someone has a shitty like someone doesn't interact that way with other people and be like get mad at people when like you're be like, why are you playing like shit or whatever, or like what like someone's like trying to critique them. But like it's just like if you're playing in a way that is detrimental to other people and not understanding that and kind of oblivious to that, that's kind of more like the casual.
You think that's casual? That's pretty negative, like sentiment to put on the label of casual. I think though,
that's how I look at it, because like I don't really label people as casual, but if you want to put a label on it, like I try and avoid using that label in the first place.
Okay.
But if someone is not giving a shit and just like ignoring like that, you have an effect on the rest of your party members and like the time investment of all these other people, that's what casual is to me. I know that sounds like pretty.
That sounds toxic, elitist. Yeah, no, absolutely.
Right, but
honestly, if that's what casual is, then probably no one watching this is casual. So like,
I'm hoping.
Don't worry about offending anyone.
Okay, just to kind of like expand on what Kaya is saying. I guess my definition of a casual, and you know, if we were to put it on a spectrum, casual, competitive, to expand on what Kai is saying, and not putting casual in a negative light, is just simply the degree of intensity at which you approach the game. Right?
That's
true. You can be competitive for 6 hours a week, or you can be casual for 80 hours a week, right? And it doesn't necessarily tie into time spent in the game. It's just and you know, time spent is certainly you know, correlating factor, but at the same time, it's the degree of intensity at which you approach the game. You know, someone who's competitive, you know, I did 11k DPS. How do I do 12k DPS? Right? Or you know, a casual will not think of that, right? They're just having fun, and that aspect of improvement, it's not necessarily lost on them. It's not like they're not. I wouldn't agree that they're oblivious to it. It's just that it doesn't concern them as much as somebody with a more competitive attitude, right?
Okay. Competitive players though, like if you're someone that's tunneling on your DPS and you're like, all right, how do I do 12k? If you're toxic, you're going to be like, fuck the rest of the party. I don't care what they're doing. And only caring about your own experience. So I don't think that is necessarily something that we can like just attribute to hardcore. Just to casual. That's definitely like, I think more the casual toxicity sort of thing that we're trying to grab at. And I think like straight out of the gates, we found an example of casual toxicity that also can exist in more like hardcore players and hardcore content. It's just like this combination of a toxic element with a casual attitude, or, you know, the same toxic element with a hardcore attitude, right?
I think that also can be attributed towards if there's someone who uses ACT and doesn't understand how to actually use ACT properly and judges people in such a way, and then becomes toxic. Like there's like hardcore players that like actually understand how to use ATC properly and like take information from it, or FF logs and all this. But then you just have these players that I guess I might even label them as casual, or like more like not casual, but like they're toxic because
mid-casual.
They don't, right. It's that's why I'm hating I don't want to use the label myself too much, but like you have people who do not fundamentally understand how to use these tools that can be utilized, and then that you can be pressured on other people in a very toxic way.
And I think a lot of that is actually, for me personally, is all just in the toxic label. It has nothing to do with casual. Like, this is all just toxic. Like, if you are not giving a shit about other people, you are treating other people poorly, this all goes into the toxic category. I don't believe casual is really in that category. I think there's a clear line. And like, if you had 4 segments, you had this side's toxic, this side's not toxic, then you have the good player, bad player, bad player. It's divided up, I think, in my opinion. Go ahead.
Sorry, just to kind of add on to this topic. Okay, I don't know if you guys will agree with me on this, but this is something that's kind of been on my mind when it comes to this whole casual versus hardcore, casual versus competitive, or whatever. But I feel like when people label themselves, in a way, it feels like they're picking a side in a fight, you know, because there's always going to be this tension between the casual and the competitive. There's always a rift. There's always conflict between them. And when you choose a side, it's almost like you're also choosing the enemy. It's just like, who do I hate more, right?
Well,
and
you're
it's just like
yourself in opposition.
Yeah, exactly. You're choosing a side, and I feel like a lot of people are just like, you know, they're just like, I am a casual. I don't raid because I don't want to put up with toxic, elitist, competitive people, right? And that's kind of they drew a line in the sand, and this is the side I'm standing in, right? And then the same thing with, like, you know, the people who are competitive, they're just like, oh, I hate casuals and stuff like that, right? You're just choosing a side. So I don't know. That's how I've always kind of like subconsciously looked at it. And until this topic came up, I was trying to articulate my own thoughts, and I'm just like, that's kind of how it is sometimes, right? So like when people say that they're casual, it also sometimes they're just saying it in like, I'm not one of those guys, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, and that's what it is. It's like, oh, someone comes and they start talking about, this is how I optimize. This is, oh, you're not doing, you should do this, right? Or, hey, you stupid shit, you should play like this. Or they could say, hey, you know, if you do this, you could get more DPS. And they're like, oh, I'm casual. To both responses, it doesn't matter. They're like, oh, I'm casual, or fuck you, right? Yes. And so it's a way of like, and again, I think this is kind of a defense mechanism. Yeah. And so I don't, it's so strange because there's so many people are so quick to label themselves as casual. How many people are quick to label themselves as hardcore?
I'd label myself as competitive. Does that count?
Well, competitive. Okay, that's because that seems nicer. But you wouldn't say I'm a hardcore player. I'm a top tier. Yeah, there's not a lot of people out there that's trying to defend themselves saying I am a badass, really good player, because it makes you seem arrogant.
Yeah, you're right.
And it's like you feel safer degrading yourself, which I always feel safer degrading myself, and I do it constantly.
But you know, I like when it comes to these labels, I think that's however you want to label yourself, that's fine. But I think one of the main sources of toxicity, no matter what side you're on, is the us versus them mentality. That is the source of toxicity, where it's just like, you know, it's us versus them. People see each other. People see the other side as they see other players as people who threaten their level of enjoyment, and not people who share the same hobby or the same interests, right?
All right.
Yeah, it's definitely like pre-assuming things about this other player that you're setting yourself in opposition to. And like we were saying, it's kind of like when you put yourself in a box, you kind of putting all these attributes in there along with it, and everything that you're not is what the other guy is. And it's hard to concede that when you're having a disagreement with another player, or a difference of opinion, or you're approaching the game in different ways, that actually you've got like far more in common with how you play the game and how you approach the game than how you don't. And a lot of the baggage of the label that you're trying to attribute to this other person probably doesn't actually stick. And there's an important difference between like what is toxic and what is a toxic player, as opposed to someone that's just like rubbing you the wrong way or saying something that you don't agree with, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we lose all meaning of the word toxic when we just constantly throw it around.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put this out there. This might be a little bit again off the rails. It's something I've been thinking about. I think about this like for the last multiple decades of my life, outside this game, everywhere. And you guys might think it's a joke, but it's real. I actually have I guess it's a litmus test. Is that what you call it? What do you say? How do you?
Sure.
Yeah.
Litmus test.
And it's if you're an asshole or not, right? If you're a piece of shit or you're not a piece of shit. It's really straightforward and it's simple. All right. If you go to the grocery store and you go shopping and you get back to your car, do you put your shopping cart up or do you not put your shopping cart up?
Holy shit.
Right? And so it's very straightforward. And you could say yes. Hopefully you guys say yes, right? I put my shopping cart up. If you don't, you might say yes right now and you don't really do it. No, for sure, you're an asshole. You're a piece of shit in some way. And now I'll explain this. I'll explain this completely. Because there's really, it comes down to what's negatively affecting you putting up the shopping cart, or not putting up the shopping cart. So if you don't put it up, nothing bad will happen to you, right? No one cares. You'll get heckled by me. If I see you, I'm going to heckle the fuck out of you. I'll be like, hey, look at that fucking asshole. And I'll say that as you're driving off, and you'll flip me off and keep going on your way. But most likely, nothing bad's going to happen to you, and your life will be perfectly fine. If you don't put it up, what happens to other people? It might roll into someone's car, right? It forces someone to have to go and fix your mistake. It causes someone to have to do something else. So it negatively affects all these other people around you that you don't have to worry about. But if you do put it up, it does take a little bit of work from you, but you're helping all these other situations that have no effect on you. It gives you no benefit to help them. You're just doing it because you feel like it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, exactly. It's courteous.
Right? And so just think about that for a while, guys. Next time you go to the grocery store, did you put up your shopping cart? Yes, you're not an asshole. All right. And so I feel like that goes into the same factor of what I'm trying to talk about today with this casual toxicity, because the way that I see it is if you go into a party and you don't care about how you're affecting the other people in your party, you're an asshole or a piece of shit usually. If you do care, you make actions that do matter, that, you know, it's a little bit more work for you, but it's helping everyone else in the group, you're not an asshole or a toxic piece of shit.
Okay.
So
I think we can like carry that metaphor pretty far. I think that's definitely got some legs under it. So if you don't put your card away, you're toxic. Okay.
Yep.
Yes.
What if you just forget?
How do you forget? So stop for a second. So how do you forget to not put your shopping cart up? What is it? You're like, I'm on the phone, I'm distracted, I'm crazy, my child's in my arm. Okay, I can understand that, right? You're not making a choice there. You're just like consciously going, and you're not. Shit happens. That's okay. I mean, it's the same thing. If someone's in a dungeon and they have all this stuff going on in life, and they mess up, and they're horrible, like their dog's on fire or something, and they're affecting the other people in the party. Yeah, shit happens, but on a normal day-to-day, 99.9% of the time, you should have the choice if I put the shopping cart up.
Yes, I think the crux of it all is attitude. Right?
What if you think the car park is empty?
That's still bad because someone else, you're taking, okay, if it's empty
forever. Right?
Yeah, it's not going to be empty forever. That cart could fly off somewhere if the wind's just a little bit strong that day. I mean, there's lots of other decisions there. No matter what, putting that cart up is the best choice for everyone. And I didn't even mention the fact that if you leave your cart out, you're usually blocking a parking spot for someone else, or you're blocking the sidewalk that someone needs because maybe they're in a wheelchair or something and they want to safely get to the grocery store, but there's a shopping cart in the sidewalk and they have to roll off to the side and get away. I mean, there's so many things in this situation that people don't think about, and they don't try to put it into consideration of this choice. But go ahead. Sorry, I I'm very
okay.
passionate about it.
No, I realize, Metaphor, this is really good. What if everyone else in the car park is a complete asshole and is just like trying to run you over all the time? And you get to the point where you're just like, fuck you, I'm just gonna push this trolley like right out in front of your car, like suck my dick.
I'd probably go find a different grocery store, to be honest with you, dude. Like, I don't know if I could really go there where you're going into a situation where your life's at stake. I wouldn't go there.
I think that's a good comparison. Like what happened, because like to me that sounds like is a situation where you have three party members queue into a dungeon all together, and they're all being assholes to this one other person. I'm assuming that's what you're getting at, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Like that I can understand that, but that is those other party members being toxic. It's just the reverse toxicity. Then it's if you're forgetting at that point in time, it's like, okay, yeah, then there is this conflict going on, right?
Yeah. If you don't care,
that's an acceptable situation where it may like affect you where you can't do this. But if the initial start of this shouldn't be these people acting like assholes in the first place to it's like a cause and effect, right?
Yeah. I just think that there are people that have had like negative experiences in the game enough times that they've just become so jaded. And when you look at a toxic player or you look at toxic behavior, like you say, it's cause and effect. You need to look at the cause. Like you see someone leave their shopping cart out and you just like, they're probably an asshole.
Yeah.
That like the litmus test, like that's good. Like I'm sure like 9 times out of 10, they're just an asshole.
Yeah.
But the thing is, you don't know why really they're behaving like that.
It's true. There are other things. I mean, that really gets into why it exists. But go ahead,
but what if it's kind of like, you know, an ongoing thing with that person, you know? One time out of 100, you accidentally left your shopping cart out for whatever reason, right? Okay, fine. But like, I don't know, if it's a trend for you, then what does that say about you, right?
Well, okay, so I think what Ethys is kind of saying is that like, and I'm going to put this in terms that Ethys might understand a little bit better too, is when you're actually in a shopping cart situation and you're putting up and you're like, oh shit, kangaroos are going to come out and punch me, right?
Right.
It's dangerous. You're used to kangaroos coming out and punching you. And maybe you just had one bad situation with these kangaroos, right? They're coming out and you're like, man, I got to just go. I got to go. If I don't get out of here soon, these kangaroos are going to come and kick my ass. And so you're just accustomed from that point forward to always just throw your cart to the side and drive off as quickly as possible.
Yeah, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
But I guess to kind of use your metaphor though, okay, you know what? Let me come up with a scenario, and you guys can tell me what you guys think. Okay, I'm the host now. I'm taking over your show.
Please, Bok. It happens. It's all right. You can have it for 1 week, and an artist can have it for another week. And
welcome to Bok Talk. I got my guests here, Frosty, Kai, and Ethys.
Yeah.
I got a question for you guys.
Yeah.
All right. So you're in a dungeon. Okay, you're in a dungeon. Or you're in whatever content. Maybe it's not a dungeon, okay? And then one person is like, hey, you're like underperforming. You're totally holding us back. You know, you're not doing a good job. Okay, you need to be doing this, but you're not. But instead you're doing that. And then the other guy is like, well, you don't pay my sub, right? You don't pay my sub. I'm gonna play this game the way that I want to play it, and you can't tell me what to do. Who's in the wrong here? Who's in the wrong, and why? It could be neither. It could be both. One or the other. Who's in the wrong here and why?
So, in my opinion, here it depends on how these situations are approached. I'm a person who can. I can't do it all the time. I don't do it here on the show very well. But in real life, I'm very good at reading the room and understanding what I should say and don't say sometimes, and trying to make the best of it. So if I'm going to approach somebody and I'm like, hey, look, something wrong is happening. I'm noticing that this is wrong. And I say something, I'm going to try to say it in a way that I feel like I don't offend them. I do also understand if someone comes across and says, hey, fucker, get your shit together. You're doing shit DPS. I don't even want to be in here with this group right now with you. In that way, the other guy says, hey, you don't pay my sub. He's just reacting, right? He's just saying, get away from me. the guy being an asshole is the dick in the situation. Absolutely. The guy, now let's reverse the situation, and I come to somebody and I say, hey, look, you need to put your tank stance on, you're not holding aggro, and they're like, fuck you. Okay, the guy that doesn't have his tank stance on and said fuck you to me is probably the asshole. And so it's something, it's just how the situation is approached most of the time.
I've so rarely ran into this because I'm generally fairly courteous in Duty Finder. And I try to avoid even saying anything half the time besides like hi and goodbye and like kind of thing. And at this point, like it's really hard for me to be put in that situation. Like I generally know if people aren't performing well, but I've had like in a Realm Reborn or like Heaven's Ward's instances where that did happen, and I did try and suggest something and it just turned out negative, that I just have completely gone to the point of I just don't want to talk in dungeons unless someone's like, oh hey, it's Kaiyoko Star, like because like they'll be like, oh you're on Reddit, some shit like that, like, and that's about the limit of where I'll speak to someone in Finder anymore.
But if this is hypothable, suppose SE removed the TOS for a week and they said, hey man, fucking no holds barred, you can say do whatever you want, and then this happens in whether a dungeon or PF or even a static environment, how would you feel? Who's in the wrong here? How do you feel about that situation? Just, whatever you want to say.
Wait, in a second. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Ethys.
It's okay. So someone's being accused of doing shit DPS. Are they actually doing shit DPS?
Yes. Let's just say yeah, sure.
Okay. And they respond defensively.
Yeah, and they say
when they're attacked. I think Frosty's right about it. I think if someone comes at you swinging and you like put your arms up and defend yourself, then that's just like a natural reaction.
But what if they're not necessarily being like they're not being belligerent about it. Yeah, they're just saying, hey, So who's in the wrong? Are they both in the wrong?
I think it also depends on the kind of content, right?
Yeah, it does. It does.
Like a dungeon and someone's like playing suboptimally, and it's like, well, it might take like 5 or 10 minutes longer. Like, who really cares? Like,
yeah. So I'm going to interrupt there for just a second and just say that this has been a pretty popular talking point with dungeons and people having to go into experts to get their tomes, and every day they join a dungeon and people. It will take them 40 minutes to do the dungeon. They just leave immediately. They don't even stay for the group anymore.
I think my general problem when it comes to dungeons is I want to say something is when I see visibly that someone is doing single target DPS when I am like on healer AoEing or I'm on tank pulling like large packs, and like I've communicated I am doing this, like and like as like the tank or the healer, I'm like, and then them just pushing one single target button, like a black mage is not AoEing, or like I see tons of dragoons that single target. Like if that is happening, and I will suggest, could you please use the AoEs? I say it in a way that like that is non-offensive, like, or I attempt my best efforts to be non-offensive in this, so that I can persuade them into doing what I want them to do. If they don't respond, then I go on about it. Like, it's like, end of the day, it's just a fucking dungeon. Like, I'll complain about it on Twitter at worst case scenario.
Right.
It's like me complaining to my friends, like, oh, look at this shitter, like, in my dungeon, because I'm like, but I'm never going to go after the person myself, right? Because it's like, I think that's where I would go about it. Like, I'm not going to do it within the dungeon itself, right?
When you're approaching a DPS and you're like saying, all right, could you please like try an AoE? You're not asking much. Like, that's not stressful for a DPS. I think that if you're in a situation where you're like asking your healer to do some AoE, or asking your tank to do bigger pulls, for instance, then that can be different. And there's probably a reason, like, if you're not doing big pulls.
So Bok, I'd say it is. I would agree with that. Yeah.
I think it is, because in like a dungeon, if you're a new tank, which is perfectly acceptable to be a new tank in an expert dungeon, and you're not doing big pulls, you might be doing it just because you're lazy or an arsehole, you want people to suffer, or you might be doing it because you're not comfortable. And same with the healer. If you're not doing DPS, if you're not like holy spamming as a white mage, it might just be because you're not very confident, you're not very comfortable. So
I'm not disagreeing with you, by the way.
If you're a DPS, no, I know, I get it.
I'm just trying to steer. Yeah, but anyway,
that's saying to the healer or saying to the tank, like, you need to pull more, or you need to do more DPS or whatever, then that's quite different to like the tank saying to one of the DPS, hey, can you AoE? Like on paper, it might seem exactly the same, but it's potentially like far more stressful and asking a lot more, right?
Right. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, as a DPS, I never asked that. I've put on that once, and but is it extremely fucking annoying to me because I know I can handle AoEing and killing this quickly? Yes, it's extremely fucking annoying, and I'm really like irritated by it. But am I gonna say anything? No, because like I'm just gonna tolerate it. But if I'm on healer or I'm on tank, I will push the issue. Usually, that's more where I push the issue because I know what I can and can't handle. And if the healer lets me die, then on tank, like obviously I'm not going to repetitively do that. Or I've had one instance where I pulled just one AoE and I told them I was going to do that. I was going to them I was going to big pull. They didn't say anything. I went and pulled a big pack, and then they just sat there AFK the rest of the time. But that's a healer being an asshole at that point.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
we ended up vote kicking them at that point. That's completely different situation. But generally, as a healer or a tank, I will say something because I know what I'm capable of. But that's a different situation of like we have people that don't feel comfortable because they don't know what they're capable of.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, okay. So actually, I guess in preparation for this episode, I came up with a with a little list of things of God. This is gonna sound really toxic and like. I guess
go ahead and get it out, man. It's
casual say. Shit, casual say.
Okay.
And just things that bugs me from that side of the spectrum. And one of those things is one of the things I said. You don't pay my sub, and it's true. None of you guys pay my sub, right? But when people say that, what they're trying to assert is, I want to play this game on my own terms.
Yeah.
And who doesn't? I mean, we all pay our own subs. We all invest a lot of time and energy into this game, maybe even more than what's considered healthy. So, we want to play this game on our own terms, right? And in any video game, you're allowed to be as good or as bad as you want. Like I'm playing fucking Super Mario. I have a burger in one hand and I jumped in a cliff or jumped into the pit. I was like, oh, I jumped into the pit, right?
Well, the difference there, just to clarify real quick, is that it's a single player versus a multiplayer game.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes. But in a team setting, your teammates are depending on you, right? And when you're in a team setting, standards go up. And like Ethys said, it depends on it depends completely on the content that you're doing, right? But to go back to the shopping cart, sorry, chat. Go back to the shopping cart. The very relevant point and the very relevant similarity is that courtesy is not mandatory, not in a video game and not in real life. You can go through your entire life being a huge asshole if you want. You're not breaking any laws. You have the right to do so. But if you choose not to be courteous, you have a choice between being courteous or being an asshole. Putting the shopping cart away, not putting the shopping cart away. You have a choice, okay? If you choose to be courteous, then, good. If instead of choosing to be courteous and you choose to be an asshole, people will not want to interact with you and bad experiences happen. And I guess, going back to video games, if your attitude is not conducive to a team environment, you're just like, you know what? I don't like AoEing. You don't pay my sub. I'm not an AoE person. I'm just gonna single target this. So that's just how I play. So you can't tell me what to do. It's like, okay, you know what? You're right. We can't tell you what to do, right? But if bad experiences arise from this and you have bad feedback from your teammates, you can't fucking say, oh, you guys are being toxic at me because I'm a casual. They don't like you because you're not a team player. Right?
Yeah, I mean, it's go ahead.
The thing is that it's an MMO. You are expected to play with other people. you should consider that you are affecting other people. That's really what it comes down to, right?
Mm.
It's like you're signing up. How Bok's saying, it's a multiplayer game. It's team focused. It's like that. It's like, come on, like realize that like your actions affect other people. Like ultimately, like that's really what it comes down to. So
I mean, and that's kind of what I wanted to get at originally here, is that when you come in, it's like going and you're saying, all right, there's a basketball game going on. We just need people to come in and play with each other, right? And there is a 4 versus 4 kind of situation. And you go up there and like, hey, yeah, you want to play with me? Yeah, sure, we'll go. And then they toss you the ball and you throw it over the fucking fence. You're just... you're like, okay, well, I'm glad we invited you and we were forced to kind of get you in here because we needed another player. What do we do now? Let's kick them out and just hope somebody else comes along and plays with us.
You guys have all seen that meme, right? With the stickman.
Yeah.
Those want to play tic-tac-toe?
yeah.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, it emphasizes the
not
perfect.
know?
I think everybody understands.
Yeah. That I think that is like the perfect depiction of toxic of casual toxicity. Is like, you know, you don't pay my sub. I can do whatever I want, and I am not obligated to be a team player.
Mm-hmm. And I think that really defines it, to be honest with you. Go ahead, Ethys.
This term, you don't pay my sub, it's a meme, okay?
Mm-hmm.
It's basically you mad, bro. That's what it is. That's basically what it is. And I feel like most people that say that, most people that use that term as a response, ironically, yeah. And if they're doing it ironically, then they're an asshole. If they're doing it unironically, then they're a fucking idiot for not realizing like how much of a dumb asinine meme that is.
Yeah, it is. But like, even though I'm using the meme, like some people say it in different variations. It's just like, that's not my play style. Right?
Yeah. Okay.
It's almost the same thing.
Yeah.
I'm casual. No, I don't mind casual. I don't have to adhere to standards of being a human being.
I don't care about my parse. Okay?
That's kind of what some people say. They treat it like, oh, I am a casual, so that means I don't have to be good at the game. I don't have to try to do anything in this game. I'm excused from being a part of the team because I casually approach the game.
Well,
and that's how just some toxic pieces of shit come across. Go ahead.
In an expert dungeon, that's fine though. Like I say, it's in context. If you're like in Party Finder trying to prog through Savage or trying to like farm an extreme or something, and someone has that attitude, then you're like, well, you're in the wrong neighborhood, bucko. Get out of here. But if you queue in for expert and someone is just like, you know, watching Netflix or like, you know, fiddling with their butthole with one hand or whatever. It's like, all right. I mean, that sucks, but you're right. Like, I don't pay a sub, and how you play isn't any of my business. This is just an expert dungeon. It would be great if it only took 25 minutes, but you're gonna make it take 40 minutes, and that sucks for me. But like, that's your prerogative.
Well, no, you're right. Again, this goes back into the situation. They can do it.
25 minutes is really high. Just saying. I just want to put that out there. Anyway, continue. Sorry.
You know what I mean.
Yeah.
I know you mean.
So I mean, and that's kind of the subject that we're talking about, right? Is when you come into a dungeon and you're gonna say that, and it is your prerogative. You have the ability to be an asshole. That is not, but you're going to be called an asshole, and Frosty's going to yell at your car as you drive away because shit, you're going to deal with the negative consequences. And when you come up and then you start complaining, hey, why are all these elitist piece of shit trying to make me feel bad? It's because you're being a piece of shit. I mean, and that's what it is.
But you know what? People will always attribute that to. Sorry, Kai, were you gonna say something? I feel like
I guess I wanted to say something about like. People, I think in this game though, like when there are these assholes in the way of being like the casual toxicity, like I don't think they have any consequences for really acting that way, like because it's it's embraced in a sense of like SE just allows this to kind of happen and allows these.
Well, they can't control it,
right? But there a lot of. I want to say this. Like, I think the duty finder and party finder itself, and how we have this like all of the worlds now connected. That is there's a consequence to this, that people have no like reputation really anymore. So you're not you have no like social structure that is giving you a consequence for doing this anymore. Like compared to some older MMOs where if you fucked up like this, you are screwed. You are fucked, and you will never play an endgame or anything like that in the game anymore. And it's kind of like this get out of jail free card for these people that act like this, like and don't care about other people. And I think that's a major issue with current day MMOs, and a lot of the issues with how Final Fantasy is.
Yeah,
So.
and I'm a huge huge proponent of what you're talking about. So I'm passionate about old MMOs, and I hate flying. Stuff that people would be like, "What the fuck? Fuck you, Frosty! Don't take away my stuff." But I understand all the benefits of having all these things like Duty Finder, getting in there. You have these negative effects where people can carry this attitude. But there are positives to it because people who are used to be able to play all summer are now raising kids and they're working and they're doing everything else, where they feel like they just don't have time for it and they want to go out and do a whole bunch of other stuff and they can only commit so many hours a week. And so these quality of life things broaden the scope of people who can play the game and help out overall. But you're right, it does breed in these negative consequences. But at this... Sorry, I thought you were about to say something.
No, I was. What was I gonna say? I just think that in content like expert dungeons, you can't and shouldn't be expecting people to play optimally. Like they're not designed for people to play.
Totally
optimally.
agreed. Totally
agree.
Agreed.
I'm not disagreeing. But.
Yeah.
No, optimal. You're right. I don't believe they should be optimal. What I would suggest, if I was going to make a suggestion, is they should play at a very base level of understanding the game. For example, understanding that if you hit this ability, it makes this ability do more damage afterwards, right? And so,
like base ability is it means something totally different for everyone else.
Base ability should be cut and dry to me. I don't know. Go ahead.
You have 90 minutes to clear the dungeon, man.
But yeah, and that's the thing, right? Like, okay, so a very competitive player might look at someone in a dungeon who's only doing like 10k DPS and be like, "What the fuck? This is bullshit." Whereas other people will be like, well, "That's fine, like whatever." And there are other people that might see a DPS that's doing like 5k or like 3k damage in a dungeon and be like, well, that sucks, but that's okay, I guess. Whereas other people fly off the freaking handle. Like, that'll just be totally inexcusable.
Like Kai.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like Kai, yeah. No, and I'm one of the few people in the world who doesn't have ACT running on my computer. So when I'm in a dungeon or when I'm doing Party Finder or when I'm doing everything else, I actually don't have those metrics. I actually don't know who is the reason behind the failing Party Finder trying to clear Savage content.
That's good, though. I think it's good. Like, if you're someone who's running ACT in an expert dungeon, you're kind of like setting yourself up to
be disappointed.
Oh, yeah. Okay. You're kind of like making your own grave there. You're like, all right, suddenly you've got this extra information that you can look at and get angry about. That's all it's gonna do for you in an expert dungeon. That's all having ACT is gonna. That's all it's gonna do. Is make you pissed off at the other DPS.
I don't necessarily need though ACT to make that judgment though.
Yeah,
because I can tell how the dungeon's like flowing. Like I can tell how long something's taking to die. Like I have a general pretty good perception of like when something.
But you don't know who's
speed. No, I'm not. But that's why I actually don't run ACT that often in dungeons. If I'm doing that, it's because I left it on accident or something from doing something where I actually needed it, and I then can get that perception, and that then is my fault, right? But I can generally make the assessment of the whole entire game based upon other players, like, and how my previous experiences, like, this is how long it should take, so I can immediately start being like, what's going on here, kind of thing. Or I can see like animations going on, like I can look at people in the party.
That's
and, like,
not a holy.
I'm like, I know that's not a holy. I know that's not Doom Spike or like any of the other AoE abilities. Like like I can immediately know what these people are doing because I have knowledge of the game. It's like
So imagine how mad you would be if you also had ACT open.
It'd make it
Yeah,
worse.
you know, okay. I'm one of those.
Right?
I'm one of those. I'm one of those people. Fuck, man. So many casuals gonna fucking hate me for this. I'm one of those people who always has ACT on in a dungeon, not because not so I can like trash other people, you know, in the dungeon in party chat, but I also just like having that information, you know.
Yeah. You just
for myself, and also, you know, like guilty pleasure. I want to know who I'm mad at for this dungeon taking this long. But you know, when it comes to a dungeon, and this goes back to a point that Ethys made earlier, is it depends on the content. And here's one thing that people need to realize, because there's a Twitter debate on this, on how dungeons should be. Everyone should be pulling wall to wall. If you don't pull wall to wall,
I think
you are actively griefing, right? And I'm just like, what? Actively griefing? Okay, one thing everyone needs to realize about dungeons, okay, is, you know how before we talked about this game having something for everyone, you know, whether you're the most casual of casual and the most hardcore of hardcore. And there is one magical place in Final Fantasy XIV where these people intersect, and that is Duty Finder dungeons.
Yes.
You can have some grandma who can't even remember her own password and has to write it down on a piece of paper to log into this game, might do expert dungeon. And then you have a world first raider who needs the cap for the week because they've been playing WoW Classic or whatever, and they're in a Duty Finder, and they will interact in this dungeon, the most casual of casuals and the most hardcore of hardcore, and they are interacting with each other. So people need to realize that they need to tolerate it, and that's why when you're in a dungeon, you can bitch to your friends. You know, this 0 DPS healer, this guy is not AOEing, blah blah blah. You can bitch to your friends. You can bitch about it on Twitter. You can bitch about it. You can just
but leave grandma out of this, right?
But honestly, that's what you signed up for. You're in Duty Finder in a dungeon. This is where no matter what, everybody wants to cap their tomes, and that's where you are. But now you get into Savage Party Finder. You get a Savage Party Finder. Someone's like, I like dungeons. I tried dungeons. I like that. I tried Glamour. I like that. I tried housing. I like that. Tried PvP. What's this Savage thing? I might like this too. Hold on a second. Hold on. Do you need to be this tall to ride this ride?
I think it depends on the party. That's the thing. Maybe. Like that is what, like, anyone can do Savage. I do not agree with this idea that like only skilled players, like, you have to be really
skilled players.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying that there are standards, and the standards aren't set by the players. The standards are set by the dungeon, by the content. If you don't do this much healing, people will die. If you don't do X damage in Y seconds, the boss will enrage, and the party cannot succeed unless
it depends on who you do it with. Because people can make up for you.
Yeah, and it depends on when you do it as well. Like, if you're doing it week 1, then obviously there's like a really high standard. If you're doing it like, you know, what are we, week 7 now? Like, it doesn't really fucking matter. Like, you can be doing suboptimal DPS. You could be basically solo healing. Like, it doesn't really.
Okay, yeah. Hypothetically, yeah, you can win without contributing. But you're in a party finder, man. Those people depend on you. You
raise the party finder.
I think if you aren't, no matter your skill level, not everyone is going to be a freaking 99 percentile player. Not everyone is going to be that good at this game. All people ask is that you try your best. That's all. That's it. Just try your best. Don't coast through it. The whole you don't pay my sub bullshit, that doesn't belong in that environment, because it is a team environment and the standards are higher. And again, they're not set by the players. It's not like, I need you to do 13,000 DPS. It's the boss is like, if you don't do 75k DPS, Titan is the toxic one, not the elitist. Titan is toxic. Titan is toxic. He says, if you don't do 75k DPS to me, fuck you. You get
I'm literally going to kill you.
I will literally kill you. You get no loot. You get no tomes, and fuck you, right? That is Titan. And so then when people are like, you know, I don't like doing Savage because people have these standards for me, and dude, the standards are not set by the players. It is set by the content. Okay.
Yeah, that's true. But then the players that do the content, the toxic hardcores, they take those standards and they try to apply them to all other content.
Yeah, that's where exactly. That's why it depends on the content.
And so even if it's like a friend of mine, even if I just see it in FC chat or I see it on Twitter or something, someone saying, "Oh, I just did an expert mode with a black mage that was only doing this amount of DPS."
So Kai or Bok's Twitter. Keep going at this.
Most of the time, I'm like, why the fuck are you even looking at your ACT in an expert dungeon? I'm like, you're just kind of being a bit of a D-bag.
So,
because you're taking these standards, which are set by these bosses in Savage, and you're like, well, Titan says that's the kind of DPS you have to do. So if you're not doing that at expert, it's like,
oh, I agree. That's why I say that it depends on the content. An expert,
and again, it depends on the party. Like
what you get.
Let's Kai talk. Let's Kai talk.
Hold on. I just want to resolve this. If you're a hardcore player, why the fuck aren't you doing hunts? Why the fuck are you doing exports?
I don't do hunts. I don't like doing hunts. I like doing dungeons.
I'm slow, Bok.
I like doing hunts.
You just avoid this issue.
Okay, so I'm gonna put this into a different perspective too. So there's a whole nother level of player, or a whole different type of player, and I fit in this category too, where I don't want to figure out where the hunt train is. I don't want to figure out what's going on with hunts. I want to log in and say, what's the quickest way I can just get the most efficient stuff without communication or talking to anyone, to log in, do an expert, do the dungeon. Within 15 to 20 minutes, I have a good amount. I do that a few times a week, plus my party finder clears, and I'm capped out. So that's the one reason why.
1 20-minute hunt train, and you're capped for the week.
But then I have to look it up and find it, right?
You just have a link shell.
Just join Aether hunts. There you go.
Okay.
I'm promoting them. There you go.
Only 64 people could be in the cross data center thing, right? Or
no. The Discord.
Oh,
they
the
literally
Discord.
do an announcement, and it's like every like 2 to 3 hours, there's always a hunt train. So as long as you at some point in time are paying attention with it, like 2 to 3 hour spans, you'll get a hunt train, and it'll take you 20 minutes, and you'll be capped. Okay. I don't know why people don't do this, and everyone gets credit for the most part. Really bad people.
Okay. Maybe I need to look it up and try that instead.
It will literally take you 20 minutes, and you're capped for the week. That's it, and that's why I say that always.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like that is the best quality improvements for Shadowbringers. Like people do not actually need to do experts.
All right.
I really like doing experts. Even if the group is like, I'm like kind of in a weird I'm a weird player like that. Okay. I do things inefficiently because I just like doing dungeons.
The dungeons are cool. I mean,
if I'm queuing by myself and I'm playing with like people who aren't the fastest dungeon runners, I still have a really good time. So yeah.
Okay.
But I do want to say that is also a negative thing though, is that now you don't have this interaction anymore. Like it's a negative and a positive thing. You don't have these interactions anymore if you have these people being pulled out by the hunt and they're capping here. And now the expectations are completely different because people are wanting to do it quickly, like expert or not wanting to do experts completely are pulled over here. But it's also dragging down like the social environment of the game to a degree, in my opinion.
It's the social environment of MMOs have been bleeding for a decade. And I mean, it's just becoming convenience is more important than the social aspect so far. And that sucks for me because I'm a social person overall. If you guys can tell, I do a podcast every week where I invite people on to talk about Final Fantasy XIV. But that being said, we're like an hour 15 in. I'm enjoying the conversation.
We're at like the quarter way point of the.
Yeah, we're at the quarter way point of the show. But no, I think when we're starting to talk, and this is a conversation I had with Goko, who's in the chat a good bit, about how expert is required for everybody to kind of get in and do. If you're doing the tombstone, you're avoiding hunts and everything else. Should it be something to where we don't try to mingle and mix these different types of attitudes or personalities, or should there always be some clashing area within the game where the competitive hardcore players are playing with the casual I don't give a fuck sometimes mentality players.
Of course, there should be. Like, otherwise, you might as well be playing different games.
Yeah.
And also, like, yeah, this game, as we were saying before, this game appeals to a bunch of different people, has a bunch of different kinds of content, but there are there's a lot of overlap, you know, like hardcore players don't just do raids, and casual players don't like categorically not do raids, you know. There's some intersection, and that's inevitable, and it's not a problem. So like doing low DPS in the expert dungeon, that's not toxic.
Well,
I mean, if you're doing 10 DPS,
low DPS isn't toxic.
No, what's toxic is the
absence of effort. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
The absence of effort is toxic.
That's what I'm saying. Like doing low DPS, that's not what's toxic. Doing low DPS because you don't give a fuck, not paying attention, whatever. That is toxic. But the thing is, we don't have access to the context. We don't have access to the player's intentions, the player's attitude. All we can do is kind of speculate on that based on how we see them playing. Like, if you die 4 times in an extreme mode, are you toxic? Maybe not. You know, maybe something's distracted you. Maybe your phone rang or something, and you get vote kicked and called toxic. And that's again the problem with this term is that it's got nothing to do with your performance. It's got everything to do with the attitude that informs your performance.
Right. And I think one of the biggest conversations people have is, hey, you can't talk about this because you're just going to be making fun of people who aren't good at the game. And I'm going to go ahead and say this too. There's a portion of the players in the game who they may have disabilities, they may have reasons, really legitimate reasons to why it's hard for them to play the game. There's just something that is stopping them from doing it, but they are putting the effort in trying, and that's completely true. But I guarantee you, 99% of the people who are not doing well usually don't have these issues. The issue is, I don't care. I don't give a shit about the other people that's around me, because I log in, I do this, and I watch Netflix, and eventually I'll get through. I'll auto attack stuff and just go over here, and then I get my tomes, and I'm like, oh, did I even do this? I guess so. Look at my reward from it. Then they log off. That's the people that we're focusing on, and I feel like we shouldn't be afraid to say negative things about these attitudes, because we're afraid of grouping it all as one and people labeling casuals as horrible people who don't give a crap about other people. That's not what we're saying. We're saying that there is a subset of people, just like within good players, that are a subset of pieces of shit who do negative things towards other people because they don't care about them.
Why? I got a question. Why do you guys think that why don't people use the trust system to get around this issue of having to deal with these people? Like, and not on the hardcore side, but like, why are the people who get so offended so easily, why are they not using the trust system? Because I feel like that's what this is somewhat designed for, is avoiding that player interaction.
You have to level up, because it takes like 50 hours to level up your trust.
Why do they care? They don't care about doing it at a proper pace.
Speed isn't your concern, obviously. Right, if you're doing zero.
That's what I'm saying.
I'll add one caveat to this, and I kind of agree with what you're saying to a point there, that like, yeah, the trust system, if you could level that up and just do that, you could slowly AFK through all this stuff and not have to deal with negatively hurting people. But again, the people who have that attitude usually don't give a fuck if they're inconveniencing the 3 other people, and they will get through quicker with 3 other people who are taking it seriously. The second part to that is trust is one person. If you have a person you want to play with, you can't do trust. And so you guys both might not be very good at the game and want to join in together and what the fuck ever through it, because you just don't have the access to it because you want to play with your other friend.
You can't cap using trusts anyway. Like, you can't run experts with them.
Can't you do Amarot?
I don't think so. Oh, you can do Amarot. Yeah.
You could technically
you don't get the
tap off
expert bonus,
Amarot.
that's all.
Yeah, so you could Honestly, it's like you could.
Again, speed's not your concern if if you don't want to try.
And I'm sure there's people out there that just bought through this stuff, right, with trust, and they just go through it. And that's where, honestly, I don't agree with it. I don't think that should be in the game. But why aren't you just going and being the complete lazy piece of shit if you wanted to have that kind of attitude and just go AFK through it and let some bots take care of it? It's just so stupid.
Okay. How about this? When I'm raiding, like I'm really focused. I'm playing, like to the best of my ability. When I'm in an expert, I got Netflix on, I got YouTube on. I'm watching my favorite clips from previous Frosty streams.
Oh. With you in it, yeah. Oh, fuck
yeah. With me, yeah, exactly.
I'm admiring what I said. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm watching Frosty episodes with Ethys on them specifically, and I'm not really trying, but like I'm still doing, decent DPS. I'm still AOing, like I'm still getting through the content, like really, really quickly. But I'm putting in minimal effort because it's just a fucking expert, and because I know that like I'm good enough at the game that I'm not going to make mistakes. I'm still going to get it just fine playing on autopilot.
But people don't care to get that good, right? They don't care to be like passively good at doing experts.
Passively good. I like that. Okay, so if someone is being passive, we're trying to say that makes them toxic for not caring. But like I do it all the time, and people would never notice because I'm performing good.
That's a totally different thing, because this is where it's at the point of where you have a routine down where you can at least do the bare minimum and it's acceptable. Like that is the bare minimum acceptable effort. Like it's not that you're not caring that people. I think the not caring thing is a little.
But I'm not caring.
Right.
But see, here's the thing:
you're not caring. But the thing is, you already put the effort in.
You're not negatively affecting people with your lack of effort.
Yeah.
So you're saying that at one point I did the effort. At one point,
by learning that your AOE spells
exist,
do more damage in an AOE situation, you have put in effort.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, I mean, you're going past the point of completely inconveniencing the other teammates that are with you.
Okay.
If you AFK watch Netflix and you're single targeting a huge pool and your tank dies because your healer just can't keep up because there's no DPS happening at all, and it's really just the tank sitting there and a healer hopefully trying to keep up with their cooldowns. But I mean, and they're both
I've got effort in the bank.
Yeah.
At one point, I put enough effort in that it's still like carrying me forward and
sure.
Yeah, from being toxic.
Yes. It's all about how you are affecting the other people in your group. I think that's really what it comes down to. It's not how you.
So it's not
I'm sorry. How your attitude is affecting other people in the group. If you have a bad attitude and you're not hurting other people in the group, do you think other people care? If I take my shopping cart and I just roll it over there and just flip it around crazy and then I toss it in there and then I go back to my car, do you think I care? Your shopping cart is not going to hit my car. I don't care as long as it's not hitting my car and you're not causing inconveniences to other people. That's fine. At least.
And if I think that someone doesn't care and they're not trying and they really are, they're just new or they're just not a good player or whatever, then I'm at risk of mislabeling them as toxic, even though in this expert context, they're probably putting in more effort than I am, like way more effort. And I might come away thinking that they're toxic just because they're not an experienced player.
But if their reaction to is then advice, is the issue there. It's because if they're actually putting in the effort and they're trying really hard, I would suspect that they would take advice if someone pointed out that they're doing something wrong. It's just at the point in time when the reaction has to happen, what is that interaction?
Yeah, no, exactly. I agree with Kai. Yeah. I agree with Kai. It's just like, hey, the tank just died and you're spamming Benefic 1. So like, have you considered using Benefic 2? Have you considered cooldowns? Have you considered have you considered using Earthly Star and blah blah blah, right? So it's just like, and then
of course it could come across as sarcastic, but
push back at you.
Well, regardless of how it comes across, like people when they're learning the game, when they're conscious of the fact that they're trying their best and making mistakes and not doing, when they get advice, like often you can try to be like really kind and really gentle and really helpful and supportive, but because they've got these insecurities, they will immediately get defensive.
Mhm.
And their
Okay.
attitude will be like, what the hell, man? I'm just trying my best, you know? Like, fuck you. Like,
You know what? Hey, you just hit one of the points on my shit casual say. I'm trying my best.
Mhm.
I'm trying my best. What does that mean? What is your
Okay.
best?
All right, let's before we get into that, Kai's putting his hand up. I have to answer him. When he puts his hand up.
I don't understand this insecurity thing sometimes. For me, it's because I want to get shit done, and I don't understand where that comes from in people. It's like no one, I don't feel, I like people get this in their head. They're like, people are going to judge them. But if you react poorly, that's when people are going to start judging you. Like no one's going to judge you if you react well to that. Like your insecurities exist because you have done this to yourself in my mind. Like when I interact with these people, like you're like, if you're positive in your reaction to like someone giving you advice, if someone's being negative to you, like it's like if you're insecure, I feel like that's a poor social skill on yourself, and like that's something you should.
Of course it is.
Like,
Absolutely, it's a poor social skill.
but like that's.
But we're a bunch of basement-dwelling neckbeards. We got poor social skills, you know.
Yeah, and that's why people say these things.
That's a big point of it at the end of the day as well. It's like we're playing a video game. We're a bunch of sweaty fucking nerds playing a video game, and most of us have got some kind of social anxiety and don't take very well to people confronting us, even in the most gentle ways.
Yeah,
I'm not. I don't. I guess I don't attribute myself that way. Like I try and avoid being like that. And I understand that like I probably have some social, like there's places where I'm not good socially, right? But I don't use that as like an excuse for why I shouldn't try to overcome that. Like I'm not gonna burden other people by saying like I have this poor social thing, please forgive me, deal with it because you're having to deal with me. I try and like just carry on.
You don't use it as a barrier of protection.
Right. I don't use it as a barrier of protection or as self-defense. Like I think that's extremely negative in itself. And I understand that that's how people can feel like they need to deal with it, but I don't think that's a good way to handle it.
And I think that's an extremely good point. And it's good that you've been able to do that. There are people who haven't been able to do that yet. They haven't passed that point of, I need to get out of my insecurity bubble. I need to figure out how to improve and how to be better. And they're still kind of locked in there. And there's we could go really deep into like crazy issues that people have to deal with mentally every single day and socially and all this other stuff. But I think that is something people should work to improve, is how to communicate online and deal with these situations. How do I interact with other people, and what do I do in these situations so it's not horrible? What's really being said here? What's really being meant? Is that this person trying to be a negative piece of shit, or is he just saying this and over text it looks like he's being a negative piece of shit? But
yeah, but that's difficult. And you like getting your haunches up when someone tries to give you advice and like misconstruing that situation, getting insecure, getting overly defensive doesn't necessarily make you toxic. It's not the best way to react. It's not a good take.
I don't think it makes you toxic. I agree. I think you're right.
Yeah, and it's definitely something that I think in the world it would help you to get better at it. I'll tell you, if we want to relate this to like a school example here, if you're in college and your professor says, I'm going to force you to communicate with the other people here, get into this thread of part of your grade is having a discussion on this discussion board with other people, and you have to respond to so many people and you have to do that. That might work wonders for people like that. But for me, I'm like, fuck you, teacher. I don't want to talk to these other people. I already have a decent handle on how to communicate, or how I would like to communicate with people professionally outside of this stupid class. So why should I do it? And maybe they feel, I don't know, you get into the social interaction and you're feeling like I have to force myself to communicate in a way that's not natural to you. Maybe it makes you upset, right? And you bite your tongue and you're hating it the whole time, but you say, it's okay, it's fine, I'll try to do better, right? And you're just like forcing yourself to just say something because you know it's what you should be saying.
Yeah.
Can anybody relate to that at all, or am I just completely...
Yeah, I can relate to that.
Okay.
I think that's fine. Here's a slightly different direction for this like advice thread.
Mhm.
Have any of you ever been in the situation where someone has been trying to give you unsolicited advice in content that is terrible advice? They somehow think they know how to play your job better than you do, and they are so adamant that you're doing something wrong and that they're right, but they're not, and they're just a fucking idiots.
Oh,
Yes.
absolutely.
We've all been there, right?
I've never actually had that experience. And
Really?
I don't.
So-
You are
I'm
so lucky, dude.
I'm
Wow.
like,
What the
but
heck?
the thing is that I try and not put myself in the situations where that would happen because I try and
Stay in your static bubble. Is that
no,
what
no,
you
no,
said?
no, 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 no. Because
Okay.
I go into party finders and everything all the time, but I try and not make sure that I'm detrimental to my party, and I feel like I've done a pretty good job at doing that, and I've never had to have that interaction.
Well,
So I don't have that personal like situation where I can say like, hey, I can understand that. So that's a lot of times where I come from. It's like it's hard for me to understand that towards other people because I've done my best to try and cover my tracks. You know what I mean?
I've seen things in particular when it's like a DPS will be trying to tell a healer how to play when the tank's not using any cooldowns.
Right. Right.
Or vice versa, a DPS telling the tank that they should be using cooldowns when they are using cooldowns and they're just not getting kills. Like stuff like that happens all the time.
So I want to put an example out there if I can, really quick. And this I'm not very good with a lot of Savage knowledge. I have a decent idea with it right now in E3S. There's a point where you have the Tsunami 2, the two groups stand at the side, and one tank goes to the middle and the front, right? And those waves go towards that tank. And that works. The waves go as they hit the furthest target. Is that right? Okay.
You're talking about Black Smokers?
No, it's before that.
Tsunami 2.
Tsunami 2. Yeah, where you sit there and whoever has those debuffs will shoot towards the furthest target. And so the optimal strategy is to have two groups to the side, and then that one person as far as they can in the middle between those two groups far away, right? So it hits both of them. All right. So I was given advice that because what happened is one group hit another group and they didn't hit me, but the other group hit me. And so they said, oh, well, you need to stand a little bit more to the left towards one of the other groups and not in the middle so that doesn't happen. Now that's bad advice, right? Because now I'm not standing as far as I can from one group. I'm standing a little bit closer to the other group and a little bit further from the other group. And so now I'm risking that other group not being able to hit me with that wave. And I think that's kind of what we're talking about. Yeah. It's like...
Sorry, I want to say, and I'll correct myself, I have had that situation. I meant specifically in job advice.
Okay.
So I'll correct myself.
Okay.
Right. Just in general, right?
Sorry.
So from there, is it inconceivable that we've ever been under the impression that the advice is shit when it's actually not?
Yes.
Perhaps when we were learning the game.
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably.
Okay.
I mean, I'm sure it's happened to all of us. Like, I'm sure we're all guilty of it to some extent.
And
so
you think you know more than you actually do. Toxic, right?
It makes we feel like we're correct in the situation.
It doesn't make you toxic, but it could be a source of toxicity. I mean, we're all familiar. Are you guys familiar with the Dunning-Kruger effect?
No.
Where?
Yeah, sure.
No.
Okay. Where basically it's like, well, the concept I want to get at is illusory superiority, where it's basically you think you know more than you actually do. And it's like your competence level doesn't match your confidence level, and you think you know more than you actually do. And I think that one, it's a barrier to improvement, but also it makes you, because it makes you resistant to constructive criticism. It makes you give wrong criticism to other people, and it's a source of toxic attitudes. Is because when people give you advice and you don't know. You don't know that it's good advice, and you fire back at them, or you get into an argument and blah blah blah. The more you know, exactly like what Denark said in chat. The more you know that the more you know, the
more you really don't know
how much you don't know.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that makes perfect sense to me too. I'm going to go back to that example I used earlier. How I responded to that was like, okay, we'll try it. I know that it's not a good idea, right? But I have 7 other people who believe that this is a good idea. And I personally just don't want to have a bad situation. And I've been having a good time with the group so far. And so I'm going to say, I will try your advice, or I will discuss, I will lay out, hey, this is how the mechanic works. That doesn't quite make sense to me. And see if they'd be willing to discuss it. If they won't, and they're very hard-headed, and they're like, this is the way to do it, then I'm like, okay, we'll try it, and then we'll see how it works out. Other people would say, fuck you, I'm leaving the group. Is either one of those wrong? I feel like one way is just saying, hey, I'm willing to work with other people. The other way is just like, I don't have to work with other people. And I feel like how we respond...
I mean, they're both right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, like, again, one of them's an asshole, but they're both right. At the end of the day, it's like, I can just leave and go join another party finder if I don't like your strat.
Yeah.
And if they're that kind of person, then like, great, good, bye-bye.
And I feel like in the end, how we respond and how we kind of react to these situations is kind of what we need to work on, is how are we going to interact with other people? Because that's what we do. It's not, it's an MMO, right? We're going to deal with other people. How do we up the overall enjoyment for ourselves in this game? When we deal with these situations, how do we come out feeling better at the end? Is it forcing this person not to be a toxic piece of shit? Or is it handling the situation in a way that makes you feel better? Right? And so for example, if I'm dealing with a toxic piece of shit, I could ignore him and act like he doesn't exist, and he's only going to cost me 5 minutes and I'm done with the dungeon. If I'm dealing with this person and I spend a lot of energy arguing and yelling and someone leaves and we got to find someone else for the group, is it any better? Do you feel like I've changed that person's perception, or did they just get mad and leave and life goes on to the next day and I just wasted more of my time? Would you guys kind of agree in the end, we can't really fix toxicity? We can talk about it, maybe change a couple of people's minds. Most of the people watching this show are reasonable, I would think. Most of them. I feel like in the end, we just need to figure out how are we going to handle the situation. And I guess that's kind of my question to you guys, is when you're in these kind of situations, is there any kind of approach that you take where you know that you're going to come out not feeling horrible and you're better at the end of the day?
Okay, well, me personally, like I do a lot of Savage and Party Finder, and that's, I think that is where the situation you described comes up the most often. Is because it is, it's pretty, you kind of get the whole spectrum, right? And it's kind of like you might have somebody who's kind of causing friction within the group. But my personal attitude when I'm in a group like that or in a situation like that is, okay, this guy's not that conducive to the group, but this is our group now for the time being. I need this guy to win. The objective is to win, Well, okay, if you're in a learning party, the objective is to learn. But if you're in a clear party, the objective is to clear. And I need this guy to clear. I might not like him. I might not agree with him. But we need each other, the 8 of us. And we're in it together from this point forward. So I will do whatever compromise I must make for this group to succeed. And that is more important to me than teaching this asshole and showing this asshole who's boss, right? Because I feel, I guess I owe it to the rest of the group to, put our differences aside. How do we win with our current situation? It's not an ideal situation. This guy doesn't want to do it this way. This guy doesn't want to do it that way. How do we work together to achieve the objective? And maybe we might not be able to. Maybe this guy's attitude is so bad, and he
messes up a lot of mechanics, right?
Yeah, and it's it's just so detrimental to our group that we can't succeed. But like you can only control what you do and what you say. So you make the most of your situation. And you go from there. And it's, again, just to reiterate, you have to ask yourself, what's more important to you? The success of this group or teaching this asshole who's boss? right?
I
Ensuring that you're right.
mostly agree with that. I think that's fair. I think like you got to work with what you got at the time. But I think you also need to like make a judgment call whether your objectives are going to be obtainable with this asshole.
Mhm.
You know, like if someone like there's so many situations where one person is being really, really negative, and you're like, if this person stays in this group and we don't like get rid of them, then the whole group's going to disband and like we're going to be waiting in Party Finder again for another 40 minutes. Like,
Yeah, if you can't win without him, you gotta let him go, or the party has to disband.
So I try, like my attitude, if someone is not playing well or I suspect they might be an asshole, is just to give them the benefit of the doubt until like absolutely proven otherwise. But yeah, sometimes you just got to like take a stand and be like, all right, you're out, bye-bye, see you later.
Yeah. Or you just mention it, say, hey, look, and that's kind of a sticky situation. I do Party Finder all the time. So I am with my progression. I don't do it for fun. I do it just for progression and trying to clear it. And I mean, I do it for fun. I have fun doing it. But it's not like I've cleared this 1,000 times. I'm just coming into the party. I do have goals in it. And so when we get into a party and there is someone that is constantly messing up, nothing's ever said to anyone, but this person obviously is drunk, distracted. Something's wrong, right? Something's where they're actually harming a party. How do you approach that situation? Do you say, hey, so-and-so, are you okay? Do you just say that? Or does anyone not understand the mechanics? Like, how do you approach that without being a toxic elitist piece of shit?
So we have to be clear that this is specifically
Party Finder right now.
Party Finder,
yeah, Party Finder right now.
Where the group has defined the objective and they're encountering someone who is incongruent to that objective. This is not like Duty Finder where the objective is defined by the game or by the duty, and that we like don't like how someone's playing.
Right, exactly. You have control over the group because you're in Party Finder.
Also, are you are you the leader in the group or not? Because I think that has.
I mean, that's the thing.
Partially.
You're not the leader. Just say you're not the leader, and we'll go with it, because that's more common than being a leader in it.
I mean, it depends. I mean, then it goes back to what type of group is it? Is it like on like what is the perception of the group in the?
It's a clear
atmosphere?
group.
Like, if it's a clear group, though, is that like saying like we're starting from like the halfway point and going for a clear? Like,
going in that attempt, you're hoping you clear it within that lockout.
So
yeah.
If in that lockout, then I would say if it's a consistent mistake from this specific individual and it's very definable, then that's when you can start saying something and pointing the individual out. But if it's not a very definable like mistake coming from this individual and you can say exactly why they're doing it or be able to point it out correctly, you're going to make yourself look like an asshole who's just pointing something out, someone out potentially. Like, you have to be able to, in my mind, provide some type of reasoning for why you're making this call, to say, hey, what's going on here, X person.
And I think that's actually something that you have to address, because, and maybe I'm just saying this, I'm always afraid of looking like a toxic piece of shit when I say something to someone else. And I feel like a lot of people are in that fear. I mean, there are a lot of people who aren't, and they don't care if they're a toxic piece of shit. But I have this fear of like, hey, I want to address this situation, but I don't want to look like an asshole. I just want the situation to be better. I just want us to be able to clear this. And sometimes they'll say, yeah, I got it. You know how many times they don't say shit?
Pretty much, yeah.
They just ignore it.
I'm under the impression that like I'm never going to be able to affect anyone's behavior in any context.
Okay.
If someone's not playing well, it's because they're just not. They're distracted. They don't care. Whatever it is, like nothing that I say or do is gonna like change the way they're playing or change their attitude or whatever. So I'm normally the person that won't say anything, and I'll just like bitch about it like to my stream. I'll be like, can you fucking believe this guy?
I think that's something. Go ahead.
Because it's out of my hands. Like, I feel like I don't have any control over it. If I'm the party leader and someone is doing that, then I will just quietly kick them. And no discussion, because I'm like, what's
I'm in the opposite side of the. I'm gonna play devil's advocate, but I'm actually different than you in that respect. Ethys is that I feel like in Party Finder, when you encounter any sort of like toxicity in Party Finder, I think that people should take it upon themselves to call out those being toxic, because like, man, I think that, would you guys agree with me that the toxic people in this game are very few? They're like a very like a small minority, right? I hope.
They're a minority, but there's quite a few of them.
It's very noticeable.
It's not everybody, but the thing is, like, suppose in 10 encounters you encounter one toxic person. That's all it takes to ruin you. That all it takes to ruin your experience. And you know, even though 1 out of 10 experiences are bad, that's all it takes. But the way I see it is, like, if somebody is being an asshole to another member, like, I feel the obligation to stick up for that person.
They're being vocal,
if they're being, because they're just like being an asshole, or on either side of the spectrum, whether it is the elitist guy saying, "Fuck you, you suck at this game," or the guy who's just like, "I don't fucking care, you don't pay for my stuff."
Yeah, you try hard, get off my back.
Yeah. You know, when that happens, like, I feel like if the community stuck up for each other more and says, "Hey, man, you know what? You don't belong in this group. You got to go." All right, like, party leader. Are we cool? Yeah. And when that happens, it's just like you're taking a negative situation and you're turning it into a positive situation for that person. It's like, hey, you know what? Someone was toxic to me, but my party member stuck up for me, man. You know, I love this community. And then the toxic person, you know, he might have a bad example, but he created it for himself. I don't give a shit about him, right? I give a shit about the innocent guy who didn't deserve what he just got. And if you sit there silently, it's just you haven't done anything to turn that positive situation or a negative situation to that.
I feel like I should clarify. I think you're absolutely right. If someone is like insulting someone or like being a bully, then absolutely.
Or not trying.
Yeah. Well, okay. If someone's being a bully, someone's being an asshole, someone's like harassing someone, I will like absolutely not tolerate that, and I'll chew them out on it. If someone is just making a lot of mistakes, it's just being every pull just playing badly. I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt. I'm gonna complain about it, like in stream. I'm gonna be like, "Oh my god, this fucking guy," but I'm not gonna chew them out. I'm just gonna be like, "All right, okay. If they keep doing it, I'm gonna kick them if it's my party, and if it's not, then I'm just like, all right, like, this is what's happening."
Is it so bad to tell them objectively and not in like, you know, just objectively? It's like, you know, we can't have you dying like that all the time at that phase, because if we don't have all 8 people,
it's not going to stop them from doing it.
Yeah, it's not going to stop them from doing it, but you're bringing it up and you're addressing it.
Yeah, you address it at least once.
Maybe you've motivated him to try harder, and you've diagnosed a problem for him. You know.
Yeah, maybe.
What's wrong with that, is there?
Maybe no. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. If I see someone else in chat doing that, then I'm not going to be like, well, that's stupid. I'm just
I think from my experiences, even within rating with like a static, I think when I bring up stuff like that, even to my group members and giving them suggestions, like at a specific point in the phase, it at least gets something in their head where at that point in time, they're like more alert to that event or mechanic. Like they think about it more when that thing's coming up. Maybe that won't necessarily happen in a party finder situation, because like I said, I've never really gotten into a situation where I should give a specific person advice. It's generally like, oh, we should handle this mechanic this way. In a party finder, it's a we more,
rather than a you.
Right. But it's at least suggesting and getting that idea in someone's head that, hey, you should do this differently here, and then that might persuade them in such a way that when that does happen, they may do it correctly next time, and they might put more thought into it.
Yeah.
If it's like a strategy problem, like the party should go about it this way rather than chewing an individual player out. Yeah, I think people will be more receptive to that because they don't have to take personal responsibility.
So
it's just,
go ahead.
It's just like saying nothing is basically just acceptance and dealing with the situation. But if you want to see actual improvement, something has to obviously change, and it's how do you want to change it? It's in my head, it's the power suggestion of that. It's just planting an idea in someone's head, and maybe then at that point in time they'll make the behavioral change that needs to happen to do the mechanic correctly.
Yeah, you can say, hey, we're having issues where so and so is dying. Is there something we could do to make this a change as a group so that doesn't happen? Are you having issues? Is there something else going on? And usually, if they're a reasonable person, they'll be like, no, I'm just fucking up, I'm sorry, right? Or they might say nothing at all and be quiet. And you just move forward, you do a countdown, and you do next pull. And hopefully it fixes it.
Some people don't even read their party chat and Party Finder half the time. So,
you know, if you're not comfortable like saying that to your group, then just don't do it. Do what you're comfortable doing. But I think if you're going to bring it up to the group, right, be constructive about it. Like, because, you know, I know this is we're talking about casual toxicity, but you know, if you're trying to you know, teach someone who's more casual in the game, you know, I feel like a lot of casual toxicity is also responsibility of the competitives, because sometimes we're the competitives. We, like me, people like me, we're the ones who kind of elicit that attitude from them as well. So to some extent, you know, the competitives are kind of responsible for that happening. Right. I don't.
Attitude's like a reaction.
Exactly.
To perceived attitudes of competitive players.
Exactly. To some extent, yeah.
That's fair. Yeah, I think that's fair.
Right, because it's kind of like, you know, not all competitors are toxic, but there is that stigma. I hate that stigma. I hate the fact that people think that elitism and competitiveness go hand in hand. I hate that.
Yep.
And the thing, but you also have to admit that where there's smoke, there's fire. Where did this stereotype come from?
I think it's a lot of times in those environments. Like, I haven't been in a static where there isn't some type of like toxicity amongst the members towards each other. Like, but it's like friendly banter. Like someone, sorry, I don't want to say it's actually toxic, right? But it's like someone from the outside perceives that as toxic when it could be friendly banter between each other within the static. And like, then people like, well, there was like a situation a little while back. We were when Layla was doing like BA and just said shut the fuck up to the whole entire like BA group, and that's because it's in a situation where that is relevant and something important is going on.
You wouldn't say that in a Party Finder.
You would never say that in a Party Finder. And everyone is like, can you believe what the leader of Elysium fucking said? Like, I mean, Layla's not the leader, but like one of the guy doing the call outs. Like, you know what I mean? It's like everything matters within context, and then that creates a situation where people think that elite or people that are more dedicated to the game or like do harder content are toxic, and it depends on your static. It depends on a lot of different things, and I think that kind of some people see that and be like, oh, that's the attitude I should have, and then like they kind of like emulate that within Party Finder sometimes.
So, you know, like, I want to go on this. I feel like this is actually goes into one, and we're getting close to 2 hours. I know it's really Kai that you're kind of on a timer here, but just let me know if worst case scenario, if you need to run off, then you can run off.
I'll tell you if it's an issue.
Yeah. But this actually comes into a community perception of people who are competitive or hardcore, them being negative and toxic, because streams show a lot of attitude that looks like it's negative or toxic, right? If you're in a Party Finder and you're doing stuff and you're streaming and you're like, all right, we're clearing this, and you see someone jump off, you're like, oh, look at that fucking idiot, right? And so you sit there and the streamers talk so much shit to these people.
Yeah,
these people,
you have to.
Yeah, they don't hear it unless they're watching the stream or something else, but that's part of kind of what the allure is for a lot of people watching these streams. Should you be like, oh, I guess he made a mistake, okay. No, you're probably going to react and you're going to say something like that because you're there with what you assume your viewers kind of friendly kind of banter towards this other person. It's not like you're trying to put them and be a toxic piece of shit. But I don't know. I'd like to hear your thoughts on that, guys. What do you feel because this is very popular in the community when you're doing a party finder and you're playing with other people and you see streamers, I guess I don't know what the right word is, chastising, belittling something to these other players that mess up.
So personally, I struggle with this a little bit, where because it's just such a reactionary thing, because like you're in like streamer mode, and you see someone die and like you laugh at them, or like you like take a swing at them or whatever, just because it's like, you know, and it's like I will either go in one or two directions. I'll either immediately be like, ah, man, I should have said that's not fair. That's not what I really think. And I'll try to like make it clear that it's not that big a deal and I'm not actually that angry. Either that, or I'll just like double down on it,
right,
and be like, this guy's the worst player ever. Like whichever direction I go in, I try to make it clear that it's just, I'm not being that serious. You know what I mean?
Oh, I gotcha.
And I'm just taking the piss.
I mean, and that's what it really is. You think these streamers give a shit the next day?
Some.
Well, some. It's true.
I cry myself to sleep for the next like 5 nights.
Yeah.
Bok, do you talk shit to players in Party Finder when you're streaming?
Sometimes I'm really objective. I'm very objective, and some people might not like that, but that's just how I am. I'm not like this guy, you know, is you know, some bad word or that. I'm just like, we're not going to clear it if these guys are doing this low DPS. I don't think we have the DPS to clear it. I will say that. I mean, that's a very objective thing. It's right. Like, this tank's not popping cooldowns. That's a very objective thing. That's what he's not doing. He's not popping cooldowns. I will say it. This guy's not popping cooldowns. He's probably going to die to this buster. Yep, there he goes. Right. So stuff like that. But as far as
I will be on comms like with people that I'm playing with from my stream that watch me, and when they die, I will absolutely just like point it out to everyone and be like, look at this guy. Look at what he just did. Is everyone paying attention? Because I don't know, like.
But then that's like a situation to where it's friends, right? It's not just some random person. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I think that's what I'm trying to get at. Like when I'm streaming, everyone is my friends.
Okay.
The rando that I've never met before that I'm playing with in Party Finder that's dying like 100 times. If I'm streaming, he's my mate. He's my friend. He's my co-streamer, and he is along for the ride. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And I think some streamers have that attitude. Some streamers don't. Some streamers do like legitimately get angry or like legitimately try and like belittle people. And sometimes it's hard to tell the difference, but I think most viewers, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think most viewers can tell the difference.
I would say 90%. There is a large 10% that actually thinks the streamer is being just a piece of shit and the community is making fun and trying to ruin this person's life. I would say that there's that percentage there. But Kai, do you have any thoughts or opinions on it?
It's really difficult because I don't stream that much and I don't watch that many 14 streams anymore. But my always concern with this is does that create a situation where people try and emulate it within Party Finder, and then that makes it worse? Is that it's like I've actually, like, when I was streaming occasionally, like I started like just stopping streaming because I would get this negative attitude because I didn't want people to like be like, this is acceptable, because it's like in my head, like me just bantering about it is like okay, but like if I'm seeing someone else that like has a lot of viewers and then doing that, I question sometimes how much that actually affects the rest of the game in the Party Finder situation. And I don't want to say that people are irresponsible and don't understand. I'll pick up on that, but I do question it.
Is it the streamer's responsibility?
That's
it's difficult to say. It's difficult.
Depends on your own stream.
I feel like
you run your stream your own way.
I'm just gonna out it. I feel like we're 100% talking about Xeno here.
We're not. We're not. Absolutely. Although that is part of his stream. But
hear me out.
Okay.
Zeno is very entertaining. The way he approaches streams, the way he approaches his fights and stuff. It's very, very entertaining in context. There are so many people that like take that attitude and, like you say, take it into Party Finder. And they're like, oh, well, Zeno does this. Like, you know, Zeno says you should play this way or whatever. And it's like, yeah, but you're in Party Finder.
You're not hardcore with other people trying to coordinate the perfect DPS situation, or you're not with a static.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, but you're not Xenos, and you're not joking, and you're missing the whole point of like what he was doing in that context.
And that's what I want to say. I wasn't specifically talking about Xeno. I'm talking about in general, but I worry about younger people that are more impressionable on Twitch coming in and then coming into the 14 community, and like, because I see a lot of, I see it, like, I understand the older audience probably picks up on this, right? But I worry about how that affects maybe younger people that maybe come into the 14 community and start playing, and how they want to replicate their a streamer. Like, you see this in other games, right? I don't know if this really has an effect or not, that much of it. It's just, it's in my head, in the back of my head, this could be impressionable. That's where it comes down to.
Right. And not only that, but like, suppose someone wants to get into raiding, right? Someone wants to get into raiding and they're just like, oh, this guy's a popular raider, I'm going to watch him. And then, you know, somebody is like, you know, whatever streamer that is, says something really disparaging to, or says something offensive about one of the members. It's like, oh no, what if I mess up? What if this is what people think of me when I mess up? Maybe I don't want to raid. And you know, that could be harmful too, right?
Yeah. Have any of you ever been in the situation where you've been like chewing out someone on stream and then you find out that they're watching and you're just like,
yeah, right here. I'm not going to say that I'm like completely like absolved of any toxicity whatsoever. I have a short temper sometimes, and sometimes, just like anyone else, I have my bad days. You know, sometimes I don't put my cart in the proper place.
Motherfucker.
And you know, I feel bad about it afterwards, and I wish I could apologize, but you know, all you can do is, you know, try to do better in the future. But I have had that where, and sometimes, like, as a streamer, I lose sight of that, and it could hurt other people, because I'm just like, you know, I feel like it's okay for me to say this, but I'm just like, you know, what if this guy really looked up to me and he really wanted to play with me, and then that's what I said about him, is that his DPS was shit or something like that, you know?
So I'll tell you, I do have this personally. It's an issue that I'm currently dealing with. And you know, it's whatever. It's a fucking game. But when we get into it and I'm playing, I will sometimes people will be like, "Oh, it's Frosty from MogTalk," and I'm instantly like, I want to leave this group.
Yeah, me too.
I don't want to be in this group anymore. Because I get in there and I'm like, what if I fuck up? I'm learning this fight. What if I'm the reason why we can't progress? What if I do something wrong here? Now that whole perception is applied to me from this person. I'm like, look, guys, I'm going to mess up a lot. I want you to know this. Because I don't, it sucks. I can't be as, I feel, I mean, I like it in a way, you know, I enjoy when people say, oh yeah, I'm like, wow, somebody randomly recognized me. That's great. But then I'm also, I feel like I'm set up for disappointment. It's the other day.
Complete opposite. I feel the complete opposite. I think it's really funny. Maybe it's because like I'm the law guy, and when I like end up in Party Finder and E4S with someone and they're like, Ethys, you raid? I'm like, no, I don't raid. I just read the dialogue over and over and over and over. That's all I do in the game. People are always surprised when they find out that I'm not terrible. So it always works to my advantage, because I don't put myself out there as someone whose content is like about that stuff.
And I don't either, but I do spend a lot of time talking to really good players, and since I do that, maybe there are viewers out there who might associate me being at least reasonably good, and I'm not. I'm average as shit.
Let's be real. Chat, help me out here. But I don't think anyone that watches MogTalk is under any delusions about Frosty being a good player.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
So chat, if Frosty like got into PF for E4S and was actually like playing really well, would you be like, yeah, of course it's Frosty? Or would you be like, what the fuck? Frosty can play? That's awesome. Holy shit. I think you're in the same boat as me, dude.
I hope so. That would make me feel better if that's
so.
true.
Yeah, I think so.
The other fact to that is if I go into a group, and then like I know like I see like this happened recently is I'm like I'm gonna go and blind prog Innocence, right? And first time I go in there, I made a group. I was like blind prog, and then Arthas joins as my party, and he's streaming, and Arthas is streaming me learning this content. I'm like, do I want to be here anymore, or do I want to just like leave and not have hundreds of people ready to shit all over me? And I went forward with it. I don't care. It's whatever. But it does have that sense of concern of, oh, I'm about to look like a piece of shit to a lot of people.
I'd be way more worried about the things that Arthas was saying about me.
Arthas is too nice right now, I think, to talk shit about me.
I'd be far less like, what are these viewers going to think? And far more like, am I still going to be friends with Arthas after this?
Oh, yeah, that's the other thing, right? I'm like, will Arthas ever want to talk to me again? Because he knows how horrible of a player I am now. But I guess this also comes into one of the other topics that we'll get into before we start taking some questions here. There's something, and this happened mostly in the PvP community from what I've seen, so you guys might not be as familiar with it, but I think it does apply to PvE, is that you'll have new players come in, and something bad will happen, and they'll talk shit to other new players. And then these new players will sit back and they just shit talk each other. Then they go post about how horrible the PvP community is, how horrible other people are, when it's really just two random new people being shitty to each other. And I feel like that's something that could actually happen a lot within the PvE community too, is that people come in and they see someone and with their misconceptions and misunderstandings of how the game needs to be played, automatically assume this person's horrible, say horrible things, and then this other person's like, wow, I don't know a lot about the game, but this guy's being a piece of shit. He's an elitist, horrible person, and anyone who's trying to be good is an elitist, horrible person. Do you feel like we're...
That's what you need to stand on.
100%, man. 100%.
Yeah?
Because that's just bullying.
Yeah, it is.
If you see that in PvP, if you see like, two new players...
We don't see it. They message each other, because you can't talk to each other in PvP.
Right, of course. So there's nothing you can do.
No,
so that's
nothing you can do. But the
other thing in PvE, like you step in and you're like, hey, come on, settle down, guys.
Yeah,
chill out.
I don't know if this is a little bit off topic, but like how I brought the example or the scenario where you have one guy trying to tell a guy what to do and the other person is resistant to their advice. Who's in the wrong. One thing I've noticed, okay, and this goes for like. Because I've been gaming my whole life. I do a lot of, I like the spirit of competition. So I am exposed to this mindset a lot, is that when you have someone who's casual and you have someone's competitive, their play styles, their attitudes, they're going to clash. And that's just the way it is. The competitive person feels that they're being held back by the casual person. And the casual person feels like they're having to play the game in such a way that they're not comfortable with to satisfy this competitive, and they will not have any of it, right? And that's where the conflict happens. But I also feel that like a lot of people's attitudes towards that is that the competitive person's always in the wrong, and I hate that. And sorry if this is kind of like a rant that's off topic, but like I used to play Magic the Gathering a lot.
Oh, completely off topic. No, you keep going.
but like they call in that game they call competitives spikes. Don't ask why. It's just a story behind it. But let's just And there's a thing I personally call spike shaming, and it's kind of like if a casual player tries to play with the spike. And they can't fit in with them. It's the spike's fault. It's just like, oh yeah, those guys don't know how to have fun. That's why you don't fit in with them. And then if a spike can't fit in with the casuals, then it's also the spike's fault. It's like, oh yeah, this guy doesn't know how to have fun. So why is he always in the wrong? Why is it always that person's fault, right? And
because he's a tryhard. Can't take tryhard seriously, right?
I was literally about to say because he's a fucking tryhard.
That's what people think. Yeah.
But it depends on the context of the event. If you're like a casual Magic like social gathering, and you come in with your like super meta deck and like all try hard mode.
Yeah.
And people are like,
yeah,
bro, come on, like we're just
Exactly.
having fun here.
Great point, because that's just the way it is. If a competitive player plays with a casual player, the competitive player must step down to the level of the casual player, and you're just casting dragons, putting them on the table, because you can't possibly expect the casual player to be like start optimizing and analyzing the meta game. It just doesn't work that way. It only goes in one direction, right?
See, this is why I only play drafts.
So it's kind of like puts the casual, like it kind of tips the balance, right? But to relate that to like to Final Fantasy, okay, I feel like casuals view competitive players as the enemy, and vice versa. But I find that a lot of the time people tend to attribute the toxicity only to the competitive people, and treat them that they're as if they're the only ones who can have a toxic attitude. And I think, and they're the ones who, because they're competitive, they're inherently in the wrong anytime you have a casual and competitive clashing.
Okay.
Isn't that more because the likelihood of having a casual in this game seems extremely higher, so that it's easy for the casuals to tip the scales against the competitive player?
I would say it's because there's no safe place for elitist, or there's no safe place for competitive players, right?
I don't think that's true, because I find that this is the case for like every game I play and just society in general. For one of the motifs in like modern society is to vilify the strong. Okay, it's like, oh, I hate rich people. I hate skinny people.
Have you seen that new Amazon series with the superheroes? What's it called? Bad something.
The Boys.
The Boys.
I wrote a piece on that.
Yeah, that guy. Yeah, it's terrifying. The most powerful person in there is terrifying. He's scary, and he is the bad guy just because of how powerful he is. Well, there's other reasons, but in the show, you're like, I'm afraid of this guy, and I don't think it's not the same situation. But for some reason, it reminded me. Sorry, that's completely interrupted it. But
but anyway, I guess my point. Sorry, Ethys. But I guess my point to say is that players who are competitive don't want to be painted with the same toxic elitist brush, not any more than people with a casual mindset wants to be thought of as like lacking the intelligence to play at a competitive level. So why are people attributing, if you're competitive, you must be toxic? If you're elitist attitudes, toxicity and competitiveness go hand in hand. I
can't give you an answer to that. I can't give you an answer to that. So people hate like rich and powerful people because of what they do with their power. People hate on it's more, people expect more from hardcore players. They think this person is experienced, this person has skill, this person should be assuming a leadership role, a mentoring role, a support role when they're playing with casual players. They need to use their experience in a positive way to lift the rest of the party up. And when they don't do that, then they get brushed with they get hit with the you're a elitist toxic douchebag stick. People have higher expectations of.
Kai, you're shaking your head. Are you shaking your head?
I just think that's fucking bullshit. Like,
me too.
Think that, because like I just want to fucking play the game just the same. Like, totally. I'm here to like enjoy the game, and like my way of enjoying the game is like trying to push myself, and then all of a sudden, because I'm pushing myself, now I have to carry your ass because you're being shit. Like that's not my responsibility. Like if you come and ask me for advice, I'll try and help you. But if it's like the expectation has to exist, like that is just how it is. Like that's bullshit. Like I
think it's bullshit.
It might be bullshit, but I think that's where it comes from. It's like if you're a hardcore or a competitive player playing with casual players, you're either expected to step down or help them step up.
Like, but then you help them step up, and they tell you.
Then they're shitting on somebody else.
You don't pay my sub. Then what? Then that's your fault. This guy tried to tell me.
Then you're gonna step down.
what the hell, man? Like, you know, we can't win. Competitive people can't win sometimes. That's what it feels like. That's what it feels like.
You can.
And
you just pretend to be a casual when you're playing with casuals.
yeah,
you just stop.
that's
just
the
stop
problem.
being a
Why
tryhard.
is that the case? Why is that the case? Is that fair to you?
Well,
Is
the
that-
other person can't go the other way.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
you're the only
other
person.
I think it's
Exactly.
fair.
Yeah,
I think it's fine.
but the thing is like when that situation doesn't work out, it's always the competitive person's fault. That's what the perception is, and I hate that. I hate that. That's such bullshit. That's absolutely bullshit. Where it's just like, oh, you know, like
So
somebody
you
said,
try being casual and you can't, and you end up being a cunt instead.
I didn't say that. That's not what I said. That's not what I said.
Okay, all right. So I mean, I understand exactly what you're saying, Bok. You're basically saying that like there's no way for you to achieve, and that's kind of what we were talking about a little bit earlier too. Is no matter what, you're going to come off as the person who's being an asshole because that's just the way it is. If you're a competitive player, you're the asshole. If you're a competitive person, things are going to be negatively attributed to you. The casual player, it's okay for them to be casual because they don't have to be, because that's what, or it's okay for them not to be good because they don't have to be. They declared their line. They said, hey, I'm here. I'm in my safe area, and I don't have to get to your level. If you're trying to pull me up when I don't want to, it's your fault. Right? And so they're kind of getting into this thing, and I agree with you definitely that it's a huge mistake, and that's kind of why we even had the show, right? Is that we always assume all the toxicity and all the negative stuff is attributed to someone being good and being assholes to other people, when actually there's a whole other side of this where people are lifting this banner of and claiming that this is the casual mindset. I'm casual. This is my banner. This is what we should be. Fuck elitists. And they're
If you're gonna hate, if some competitive player is being an elitist asshole, then hate them for being an elitist asshole, but don't hate them for being competitive. And attribute that to all competitive players, and saying competitive and treating it as if competitive and toxicity go hand in hand, because that's not true. From my experience,
drop
again,
the categories then.
yeah.
This is anecdotal, but from my experience, I find that like just like random toxicity comes a lot more from the players who I deem as unskilled more than it comes from the skilled players. I find that those players are more prone to doing so, but you know, people have this.
I think that's true.
I think go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, I just think we need to stop paying so much attention to where it's coming from, like what type of player it's coming from. Like assholes are just assholes.
There's different types of
toxicity.
There's different types of being an asshole. But it's not like, I mean, there is a casual viewpoint of being an asshole. There's a toxic elitist way of being an asshole. But we definitely need to take away and say, just because your mindset comes into a casual way of playing the game, and just because your mindset becomes into a competitive way of playing the game, that doesn't automatically attribute all these negative, toxic things that come along with it. But they are there, and there are different versions of it. And we need to be aware that people can be an asshole just because they don't care about the other people that are around them. And I think that's kind of what I wanted to talk about, is that there are people who are assholes that we're not assuming they're assholes. We're just contributing. It's okay for them to be the way they are because they're under this label.
So long story short, just because you consider yourself a casual, that does not absolve you from being toxic. You can be toxic if you're casual. You can be toxic if you're competitive.
And how to pinpoint it, right? Yeah. And we have to have an understanding that there are legitimate reasons for people playing a certain way that they're doing, but there's also a lot of really legitimate reasons that they're assholes. And we don't see it as much because we throw it in this little hidden bubble of, it's okay, you're casual, it's fine. And I don't think that's completely true. But anyways, we're definitely over. I know Kai, I'm trying not to take up too much of your time. Are you able to stay for some questions, Kai?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I'm going to do a cut to the chat here. We're going to answer we can't answer like a ton of questions, but we can answer some questions here. And I'll try to pick them out. So go ahead and submit your questions there. And I'll ask them here. We also are going to be doing a giveaway for, I haven't mentioned anything. This is Hachafont, this mini figurine here. He is alive. He has his shield that's unbroken. So this is I guess Heaven's Word, Hachafont here. And he's a cool guy. You guys could win him, but you need to have a US address. That's the most important part. But listen to this ad real quick, and I'll be right back. All right, guys, welcome back here. Thanks for hanging out for that little brief ad. We have a question here to start us off, and I think this is probably a really good question to start off with. What did Kaiyoko Star spill on his chair? I don't know. I actually have no clue what that means. Did you spill something on your chair? I can't hear you. You're muted, I think. I think you're muted.
Muted.
Yeah.
My cat's kind of like torn it apart. I don't. What's spilled on it?
I
That's
don't know.
probably it.
Where are they talking about?
Yeah, I didn't know if like you spilled something during the show and I just didn't recognize it, or
Yeah, I don't know what the hell they're talking about.
Great question.
Okay. Great question. Good way to start that one off. I'm gonna go ahead and do the giveaway again. You just have to type this in chat. And you have to be a U.S. resident. Not really. Okay, you don't have to be. You have to be a person with a U.S. address that I can ship this to. The second thing is, if you're in a country with weird giveaway laws, you don't win the giveaway. I'll just ship it to you because you're my friend. If you win. Does that sound fair? Gets legal obligations off the table there. And you guys just have to enter this. You have to type this into chat. Let me go ahead and announce it. It is repair your shield, all one word. So before you get into any content, make sure to repair gear, shields included. And if you type that in chat, you'll be entered into the giveaway. Again, need a U.S. address, and I'll work with you after the show once we figure that out. So let's go ahead and get into the next question here. Okay. Well, I don't know. That seems like kind of an odd question here. This is actually probably a good one. This is for Kaiyoko Star. How do you think toxicity in Final Fantasy XIV compares to Final Fantasy XI, Kaiyoko?
Oh shit. It's been so long since I've actually played it. And
Really?
It's like I haven't played it in like 10 years, right? Like
Mhm.
it's like in an end game standpoint. When I played Final Fantasy XI, I felt like I knew the people that I was playing with a lot better, so I didn't feel like I was as toxic towards them, or like it was a lot. I didn't see the toxicity outside of like people maybe toxic to outside of your group because you'd have like the link shell, right? And that's kind of like the equivalent of a FC, but like people were more linked into their like groups. So, oh man, I I'd say I'd say it was less though than 14 on like perception, because like I feel like people strove to actually be better in Final Fantasy 11 than and they didn't have the situation where they were putting themselves like where they do this pay my sub or I pay my sub thing, like it's they're they're actually trying to do better for themselves, so they try and do it's just I don't know how to describe it outside of like people were trying to make sure that they were at the correct level that they needed to be, and because otherwise they wouldn't get into party finders, because you're not in a duty finder situation where you just randomly match with people. Like what you would do is you'd put a search comment like and someone would search your name, and because you'd be in like a list of like people that were like looking for party, and so if you recognize the name on that list, right, and you knew you had a bad experience with them, you just wouldn't take them.
Mhm.
And it's kind of like the reverse of Party Finder. Like, it's the groups would look for the people themselves,
Right.
and so you could easily have this reputation where the players of themselves are managing like who they're allowing in this party in the first place. And so I think it was always a little bit better. I think maybe I think the more like the toxicity was between like groups of people like fighting each other over like mobs, right?
Right.
But that's like competitive nature, right? Because if someone else claims it claims a mob, and then your group doesn't, then you're gonna be like pissed off at that group has it and you don't, because then you just wasted 24 hours basically.
I agree.
So
I think
it's a completely, it's really, it's less because it's, I think it was such a different type of toxicity. Like, it was like naturally filtered by the player base whether there was
people,
there would be toxicity.
yeah, people, and this is just old style MMOs versus new style MMOs. People want it to behave because that behavior affected their how the game was going to work for them later on.
Yeah,
Uh,
like in that, like, you, if you were being a piece of shit like in your group, people would just not bring you in like in your link show, or you would get kicked out of your link show, and like you have like DKP, just
Oh, yeah.
for like how many times you would go to an instance, like you don't want to lose all your DKP and then not get an item because of that. Like,
Okay.
like also it depends on how it's distributed, but like there's
Mhm.
a lot of like, there's social things built by the player base itself, ramifications. It doesn't require SC to step in.
Right. No.
Unless it was like actual harassment where people were like, like calling people names in shout chat. I don't know how to like, I don't know how to like say it any other way. It's like, unless someone is actually doing real harassment, it's a completely different situation from Final Fantasy 14, and the game itself allowed this not to happen.
Mhm.
14's design structure just allows this to happen. That's ultimately what I'd say.
Okay. Okay.
Sorry.
No, that's good. That's good. We're gonna move on to the next question here, though. I think this is a good question. Maybe I'll just direct it to Ethys to start here. Do you believe calling people out for not doing minimum required is needed? And I guess I guess that would depend on what's minimum required. Is minimum required to pass the duty finder expert, like a healer to be able to live through the boss and keep everyone alive?
I have like in the back of my mind my minimum expectations, but I also understand that my expectations are totally different to what other people's expectations are, or to what the actual requirements of the duty are. So it depends day to day. Like, sometimes I'm having a shit day, I'm feeling super intolerant, and if someone, you know, looks like they're going to make a duty take 40 or 45 minutes that should only take like 15, then I'll be like, oh, I'm out. Peace.
Okay.
But most of the time I'll be like, all right, this person's not meeting my expectations, but you know what? Like, it's not all about me.
Right.
There's only in situations where there are really clearly defined minimum expectations, like a party finder that I have made, that I have kind of set the parameters for, will I like really strictly hold people to a minimum standard.
Okay.
It's such a vague, like, tenuous, intangible thing.
I'm going to ask this next question because I know I am a piece of shit with it, and a lot of other people are pieces of shit with it, and this is something that I have no care for, but I know there are people out there who do have care for it, and maybe I want you guys to approach this question in a serious manner, if possible, because I know some people will be on the side where I am. Can we talk about how toxic Lalafell hate is, and how it affects? Or I guess the question is, can we talk about how Lalafell hate is toxic? It hurts my feelings, and I don't know. Okay.
So memes can get to a point where they start to be abrasive, in the same way that like friendly banter between friends, if it's not like transparent and if it's not reciprocative, it can get like offensive and hurtful. And I'm one of those people that enjoy my Final Fantasy 14 memes, and when I'm playing my primal character and people are like, oh, why are you playing a Lullafell? Why are you playing a Potato Ethys? I'm like, I'd never play a Lullafell. This is a dwarf. It's not a Lullafell. Are you kidding me? Like, I go along with those memes. I find it funny. But when I encounter people that are like, hey, bro, come on, like, lay off on the Lullafell head, I'm like, all right, cool. You know, like, I won't be like, oh, grow up and like keep teasing him. I'll be like, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize that, like, that bothered you. So I think context is important for stuff like that.
And I think I want to add to this, like, personally, it's something that I feel is not important. And I mean, that's just who I am. But I know there are people out there who do find that important. Like, there's a section in the community, and it just goes into our point of, do we care about people who think like that? Does that make them different because they think it's important? Because I've had people approach me after I made a bad Lullafell joke on Twitter and said, hey, why'd you have to say that? And they got really angry, and then they started finding ways to attack me afterwards.
You say, sorry, it wasn't.
Yeah, and so I know it is a serious thing, and it's a common thing that we make fun of all the time. But I mean, it's if you're in that situation and this is the environment, I can't think that you have to expect other people to adhere to your feelings towards the game's race. Because I feel like that's not something, to me, again, this is me just feeling it, that is something that I could put a lot of value behind, of something that personally affects me. Because it's in the game, and it's not something that really matters to anything that's going on with me.
Right, because you're quite detached from the game, and you don't have like a strong attachment to your character or to your character's race or whatnot. And there is, whatever side you're on, there is a really important distinction between real racism and real discrimination, and like, you know, teasing someone who's playing a silly little, you know, potato person. Those are two totally different things.
Right.
The more attached you are to your character, the more you're gonna feel like that is personal. And I'm very sensitive to that, and I'm very like respectful towards that. But you've got to realize that when someone is making Lullafell memes, they're not racist.
Right. It's just funny jokes that they feel like they can make.
Right. Okay. Fair. But like, I think that like, even if you're joking, even if you meant nothing by it, if somebody doesn't like it and asks you to stop, you know,
then stop.
Yeah, just stop. Just respect their wishes and stop.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not just about Lullafells too, because like, I used to meme on like Black Mage when they were like really bad back then, and like, you know, some of my friends who were like really passionate about Black Mage, they didn't like that, just like, you know. And then same thing with like, say, Crystal Data Center. I mean, you could be joking about Crystal Data Center and say, oh yeah, Crystal Data Center is like this, like that, and ha 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 ha, and you're just joking, but like you're also perpetuating the meme, and that's something that could make people uncomfortable, or, you know, they might not like it, right? So if people ask you to stop, then, you know, if you want to be, if you value their friendship, then you should stop.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing. If you value this person, or you value this other person that's on the internet, and some people don't value other random people. But Kai, I saw your finger go up a couple times.
So this actually started in Final Fantasy XI, because Tartarus are naturally are the equivalent of a Lullafell in that, and it started back then. And I made a lot of Tataru jokes, and no one ever cared back then. And my kind of view on it is, there's so much political correctness right now, and I don't want to get into this too much. I don't want to moderate my speech when it comes to this thing. If you don't want to associate with me because I'm gonna make fun of you because you're a Lullafell or something like that, then don't associate with me. Like, that's really what it comes down to. Is like, it's a joke. Get over it. If you're too sensitive, don't associate with me.
If you're sensitive to it and you don't want me to make jokes about you, then I won't. But I'll make jokes about other Lullafells.
If it's my friend, if it was a friend and came to me and like, hey, like, I like, it's kind of getting pestering, and I'm like, I'd probably be a little bit more associated. But if it's like some random person, like, I'm sorry, like,
get over it.
Get over it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So let's go on to the next question, because that will lead into a whole huge, crazy topic that maybe we're not prepared to do at the moment. And I guess this is another question that's kind of general. Try not to blow it up too much here. I think the real question is, why is it so difficult for people to just be kind?
Because life sucks and we've got hard jobs and we just want to come home and blow off steam. And we're always, like one bad comment or one wrong rub away from exploding at each other.
Okay. All right.
Basically.
Yeah, I mean, I saw when I was making that kangaroo joke earlier with Ethys, I saw his eye twitch and I was like, pull back. And so I pulled back. So, but no, I think that is a good thing, is that we bring a lot of our own issues, I guess subconsciously into the game as we're going along, and it affects kind of what we're doing. And so you can see people just not be kind. Some people make an effort towards it. Some other people are just in there exhausted and they just don't.
Well, also it's very hard to empathize with pixels. Yeah. Like it's much easier to be abrasive to someone who's represented by a few lines of text and a few pixels than it is to like a real person sitting across from you. And it's so easy to disconnect from the other humans that are on the other side of the interaction.
It's like you're driving and you see someone and you're just like, fuck this guy, he cut me off, right? Yeah. You don't care about that person. You're just like, that guy cut me off and he's in a car and I hate that person in that car.
Yeah. So you should try to be kind, but yeah, it is difficult.
No. Bok, do you have any thoughts on it?
No, I generally agree.
Okay. Fair. All right, so let's see. Let's get at least. Oh, you know what? I haven't done the giveaway yet. Should I just do that real quick?
Sure.
You have a pretty good chance, almost a better chance to winning a mount in a primal fight right now. And so let's go ahead and see who won this Hachafont. And again, has to have a U.S. address, and I will get with you after the show in Twitch whispers. Jeff. Jeff, are you in chat? Jeff. I'll ping you there, and if you are, we can get everything worked out for you. I'm just waiting. I haven't actually seen a lot of names of people. Yep, Jeff is there. He's a Twitch Prime user. There we go.
Congratulations.
Yeah. All right, so congratulations. Get with me after the show is ended. I will send you a whisper through Twitch, and then we'll get your email. Actually, if you just want to email to me, Final Fans, or just as FrostyFX or FFXIV@gmail.com. If you send that to me, there you go. Twitch Prime sub for Hachafon here. But if you want to send me an email and just say, hey, and actually, you know what? I can't do that. I'll whisper you afterwards. We'll figure it out. Just stay in Twitch. Jesus Christ. The next question, one of the last of the couple of questions I'll be asking here is, what steps do we do as players, casual or competitive, to start to break the mindset of pushing others down to do well as being toxic? So how do we stop people from having a negative mindset within all of this? Like, I'm trying to think of the best way to pose that. What steps we as players, casual or competitive, start to break the mindset of people pushing other players to do well as toxic? It's kind of like what Bok was talking about a good bit.
Okay. Can I take on this one?
Yeah, yep. That absolutely you.
Okay, sure. Well, I think because a lot of before this episode started, and as reading Twitter, and some people are like, "Why are we talking about this? This is never going to change." And maybe they're right. Like, we're not going to get rid of toxicity from video games. Are you fucking kidding me? You'd have better luck trying to get all the water out of the ocean. Okay, so like, but like, I don't know. I guess when it comes to our community, is just recognizing that, like we said earlier, no two people enjoy this game the same way, and somebody else's, the way someone else plays might conflict with yours, and so forth. But I think if people, I think things like MogTalk. One of the things I love about MogTalk is it's kind of like the crossroads for this game. It's like it has because this game has something for everyone. And as a community, you know, if we kind of, you know, develop more of an understanding about other players and, you know, players who aren't like us, what they go through, what they do, you know, what they're thinking about, you know, the more we do that, the more we realize that even though we enjoy this game differently, you know, we're not that different from each other. We still play this game to have fun. We can still relate, you know. You might not be a raider like me, but we can still talk about the story. We can still enjoy the music. We can still say, oh man, I love this ability on Dragoon. It's really fun to use and stuff like that. And realize that, you know, we have more in common than we think. And, you know, and maybe I think that would alleviate the whole us versus them mentality.
Mm-hmm.
And in addition to that, it's just like, even though it feels like each of us is a drop in an ocean, right? And that, you know, my own attitude is not going to make any change. If I stop being toxic, it doesn't mean like everyone else is gonna. But like, you know, every interaction you have with somebody else could like resonate with them for the rest of the time playing this game. And and I think if people realize that, then you know, it kind of bridges that gap. And yeah, I think that's the best way to fix the issue. You'll never be completely fixed, but you can fix your own interactions, right? And that's what, and you know, if everybody chips in and does that, then, you know, better.
I want to just tack something on there too. Also realize some of the negative interactions you have are one-offs, and they're not always representative of the person that's giving you that negative interaction. They could be having a bad day, and it's good not to attach what just happened to their character, unless if this stuff is happening constantly, sure. But if you're in a random group with someone and you see have a bad experience, don't take it so offensively. You kind of have to have a little bit of an open mind to it. I don't know.
Don't assume that the person is toxic just because you had a bad interaction with them.
Yeah.
Give them the benefit of the doubt. You can't prevent toxicity, but you can develop tools personally to help manage it.
Let's see, one more question here and then we'll kind of wrap up. All right, I didn't read this fully. I'm hoping it goes out pretty well. When it comes to rating content, to avoid toxicity with the people like you, I was told that I shouldn't raid with people you enjoy. I was told you shouldn't raid with people you enjoy talking to. Oh, okay. or be friends with. Would you agree with this sentiment, to avoid toxicity among people you like? So if you like someone, should you not raid with them? I guess that's the question.
I raid with my housemate, and when he fucks up, I just turn around and yell at him. But we're lucky that we have the kind of relationship where we can chew each other out and it doesn't cause any tension. But yeah, they're like, bad raid groups have ruined friendships for sure for plenty of people.
I specifically sometimes avoided playing with my friends in a raid group situation because I don't want them to have like bad feelings towards me, because I'm pretty abrasive when it comes to raid situations. It's just, unless the person really understands or like shares the same mentality, it's really difficult for me to want to like raid with my friends, because I don't want to have them have that negative thing on their mind when we're trying to like have fun or do something else. It's just the way like how I look at it. So I can kind of understand that.
Yeah, you want to like leave all the raid energy in raids, you know, like in its own little microcosm, and not let that bleed into any other aspect of your game or your life or your personal life. I understand that sentiment. It's possible, but it's difficult, isn't it?
Okay. Yeah, I think there's some truth behind that. Like, a lot of people say, oh, don't play this game with your friends, it'll ruin your friendships. And I don't feel that way about raiding. I mean, when it comes to raiding, the people I raid with, I consider some of my closest friends, and raiding has only strengthened our friendship. But at the same time, raiding is something that's like, you know, if you have a casual mindset and a competitive mindset, they're going to clash, you know, and then you get into a situation where, you know, you're friends, you want to play this game together, you want to raid together, you want to enjoy the content together, but you got one guy who feels like, you know, I'm being held back by players who aren't trying as hard, and it's not fair to that person. And then it's not fair to the other person with a more casual mindset, that they're feeling pressure to be more hardcore than they actually want to be. So then when there's that conflict, it can cause like rifts in the friendship. And in some cases, you know, you want to, you're just like, you know, we're friends. Our friendship can survive this conflict, but sometimes it's just better that you're not in the same raid group, because your philosophies and the way you approach the game is so different that it hinders both of your enjoyment. You can be friends in different raid groups, right? So
you just got to be on the same page.
Yeah.
There's two questions. I said that was the last one, but I'll ask these two questions because one of them is actually a pretty good way to just wrap up the conversation here. But the first one, which is not my question to the group: can you guys each do beard chin stroke so we can vote who has the most evilest of the evil overlords, or who is the most evilest of the evil overlords? I think
I've just been sitting
no, you've been sitting here stroking it the entire time. And
it's because I started using this beard oil recently, and it's just it's so soft. It smells like cedar.
I think Kai would win. To be honest with you, I think Kai's the evil.
See, I can't grow facial. Well, I do grow facial hair, but it's like really patchy. So I wish I could have a beard. I wish I could have a glorious beard like yours, Ethys, but I can't. Like, it just grows like unevenly, so I had to like shave before the thing. So I don't know if I can. Maybe I could pretend I have one, like the master in Kill Bill. You know,
you're too nice looking to be evil, Bok. I don't know.
Well, I was like this a little bit ago.
Kai's got like the supervillain jawline, so I reckon if you grew like a little like veterinary kind of goatee.
like this?
Yeah. No. Just like the goatee, you know.
Oh, okay. It wasn't like that earlier. It was more neckbeardy earlier today.
Oh, okay. So again, last question here. And this could be good to wrap everything up. What's the solution to counteract casual toxicity for the future? There's nothing.
Counteract casual toxicity. Don't play with casuals.
Okay.
Hunts.
Oh, I disagree.
Okay.
I wish.
I'm joking.
Yeah.
I don't know, not with Kai, but I just feel like a lot of people's solution is like, a lot of people's solution is, I'm gonna stay within my bubble, and
no, you can't do that.
You can if you want, but it's just like, man, you're depriving yourself of a lot of the enjoyment in this game, and like, you know, meeting people. And I think the solution from both sides, from the competitives and for casuals, is to have an open mind. And that seems freaking, you know, all kumbaya and shit, you know, but but it's true. Just have an open mind, because like, I feel that people think that people who play the game differently than they are, you know, they're the enemy. So I don't know. I think if people had an open mind and, you know, kind of respect other people who play the game differently, then yeah, I think that's the biggest thing.
Yeah. And I think that's actually a very good thing, is kind of address it and just know we're all people trying to enjoy the game, and we need to address it that there are some things that they will do that's negative, and they'll be different in different variations and everything. But we just have to realize this guy is just logging in, and he's just trying to play the game. He's just trying to get through the dungeon, and sometimes it's not about them attacking you or being a piece of shit, even though there are sometimes where it is. But and to fix it, you're always going to be meeting different people, and I think that's part of the beauty of it too, is that you're going to see some real shitty people out there with lots of different variations of how they're going to be shitty, but you're also going to meet a lot of people who are actually kind of cool or interesting if you try to step out of that silent comfort zone that most of us keep ourselves in. But I've met some pretty cool people, I think, over the last 5 years of doing my life in this game. But all right, we're ready to wrap up. We're ready. Yep. Kai's like, yeah, we should have. I'm gonna get yelled at. It's 50 minutes late. All right, so let's go ahead and do our closing bits here. Kind of last things that you want to say, shout outs, and kind of where people can find you. And Kai, I'll start with you just in case anything does happen in the last few minutes here.
Okay. I'm my shout out is to Alexander for being cooperative, because I think he's still sleeping. I can't hear him.
Okay.
But And then, but yeah, you can catch me on my Twitter account because that's usually where I have all my content, which is Kaiyoko Star on Twitter. So that's it.
Okay.
If you want fashion report stuff, it's there.
Okay. Bok.
Shout outs. Shout outs to you, Frosty. I feel like I said before, like MogTalk is kind of like the thing that it's one of the things that ties the community together, because the game is so freaking vast and there's so much to learn and there's so much to know about the game and stuff like MogTalk ties it together and among other content creators out there. So when it comes to something like this, casual toxicity, competitive toxicity, being able to talk about it and giving people an opportunity to kind of show other players, what this game's all about, from a perspective that they might not have, is like such a huge thing to our community. So, yeah.
No, thank you. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you guys, and so you guys are extremely important to the show even happening and existing. So of course.
Mm-hmm. And how to reach me? Well, Bok Choy KN is my handle for everything: Twitter, Twitch, and Discord, no, and Reddit. So if you want to reach me, check me out, then that's how you do it.
Okay, very good. Ethys.
Shout out to Frosty for being an awesome guest and making a great show. It's always a pleasure. It's a difficult topic to approach, and I just think it's really awesome that like you don't kind of shy away from some topics that might sometimes be a little bit difficult or a little bit controversial. And thank you for picking some awesome guests. It's been a really great discussion and a pleasure to hang out with you guys for the last couple of hours.
You too, man.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Make sure you all go and follow these jabronis in their respective places.
Mm-hmm.
And while you're at it, if you're interested in law, you can follow me on youtube.com/Ethys Asher. You can follow me on Twitch, same name, where I stream full-time hours. Also Twitter and everywhere else, Ethys Asher. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Oh, I fully sorry. Oh, let me fix this real quick. Ethys Asher.
Ashwer.
Guys, yeah, please. I do want to give a personal thanks as we're wrapping up here to Bok, Kai, and Ethys for coming on the show. You guys are amazing. I couldn't pick better guests, I think, for today's topic. We had a really great conversation overall. And I know the conversation wasn't all steered in a little bubble of us just shitting on casual players being toxic and focusing on all that, because I think the conversation is a lot bigger than that. So you might have been a little bit deceived if you came in here and thought that the entire show was just going to be complaining about how casual players interact with us in the game.
Sorry, guys.
I do want to go ahead and also give of course, quick thanks to Andre Kane for the intro and closing music, Blazana for the layout artwork that we use on the show, and of course, Korara, who is my emotional support in the background and helps make all this stuff happen. And without a doubt, thank you everyone who came and watched the show and supported us doing this topic, as well as everybody on YouTube and all the people listening to this on an audio cast. And Square Enix, of course, for providing the giveaways that we do here. I'm trying to think if there's something else I need to make sure I say. Yes, absolutely. I want you guys to know we do a lot of rating topics here and a lot of discussions on PvE content and everything else. Next week, we're having a show where we're interviewing Cheza, who is an extremely good cosplayer. One of the best and most popular and most influential cosplayers in Final Fantasy XIV. And don't avoid that just because it's not a rating topic. This is something I'm really, really interested to talk with her and kind of discuss everything, because she made the cosplay, the Gunbreaker cosplay for Yoshida.
Yeah. But she's fantastic. She should have some really, really interesting insights.
Yeah. So you guys should definitely come by. Even if you're not interested in cosplay, it would be a very interesting discussion overall. So make sure to check that out next week. And thank you guys. Thank you everybody who subbed and everybody who supported the show, follows everyone during the show. I know I don't say a lot of stuff during it because I feel like it would interrupt the conversation, but I do appreciate it nonetheless. We are going to do a raid or host here at the very end. I'm going to roll the credits and just stay tuned for just a little bit longer, guys. Thank you very much. Everybody say bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye. Cheerio. See you
Bye.
later.